Chapter 1, The Day of Rebirth. Crackling sound. Nanshan, next to a trash can. Zhang Feiyuan looked at the report card in his hands and confirmed the fact of his rebirth. His academic performance remained as stable as ever. With an outstanding score of 251 in the college entrance exam, he had bid farewell to all kinds of serious universities. His memories of his previous life were still vivid. After the college entrance exam, he entered a fly-by-night university. He played games for 4 years of college. When he graduated and officially started working. It's not so bad that he didn't earn any money, but he also fell ill. He suffered from headaches and body aches, but still worked overtime enthusiastically. Finally, one night, he couldn't hold on anymore and left this world with his eyes open. In this life, I can't live like I did in my last life. Zhang Feiyuan clenched his fists and silently encouraged himself. First, he must never work overtime again, exercise, and take care of himself. In case of failure, it will still leave him with some capital to fight for a bowl of warm rice. Second, he will not go back to university, which will save a lot of tuition and food expenses, and will not waste time that is useless. He is obviously not cut out for it, and should focus on his studies. Third, he will quit his internet addiction and will never associate with gambling and drugs again. Heaven is watching. Zhang Feiyuan is holding a small notebook and constantly recording his future rebirth plan. Zhang dash away, what are you doing there? It smells so good next to the trash can, it's going to kill you. Zhang Liang came running from a distance, looking out of breath, Zhang Feiyuan's best friend. The two usually got along well, often joking around and telling dirty jokes. He was big and burly, with bushy eyebrows. In the end, he entered the same university as Zhang Feiyuan, and after graduation, they both entered the same company. Zhang Dashui is Zhang Feiyuan's nickname, and Zhang Liang always calls him that. Like Zhang Feiyuan, Zhang Liang comes from a family with modest means. But in his previous life, he worked much harder than Zhang Feiyuan. He took on various part-time jobs while in college, and even helped Zhang Feiyuan pay for a large amount of internet fees. Thinking about this guy still working overtime after his death, Zhang Feiyuan couldn't help but mourn for him in silence. You've already died once, so don't worry, no one can kill me in this life, Zhang Feiyuan snapped back. Nonsense again, I've never seen you die. By the way, what score did you get in the college entrance exam? I got 252 points, and I think my father will beat me to death when I go back. Zhang Liang couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. His father never showed mercy when he hit him, and if he knew that he only got this score, he would skin him alive when he got back. In fact, sometimes Zhang Feiyuan really envied Zhang Liang, at least he still had an old father to beat him up. For Zhang Feiyuan, a child without a father or a mother, this is undoubtedly something to aspire to. He was once an orphan, picked up and taken in by an aunt and her family. The aunt was a kind and gentle person, and although she never hit him, she would probably be furious if she knew that this was the only thing he had studied. 251, are you satisfied now? Zhang Feiyuan casually replied, not wanting to discuss the issue any further. Zhang Liang didn't care either, and couldn't help but smile. Knowing Zhang Feiyuan quite well, he knew beforehand that the result would be not much different from his own. He was quite relieved to learn that he had scored 1 point higher. Then he thought of something and asked Zhang Feiyuan, what did you think about the matter I mentioned to you earlier? My cousin and I have already agreed, and we can start today. Zhang Liang had a cousin who worked in a hospital, responsible for environmental management and cleaning. Cleaning, in short. Since both families were in a difficult situation, Zhang Liang proposed the other day that they go to the hospital together for 2 months of work during the summer vacation. The monthly salary is 1,800. This is considered quite high at this time, and Zhang Liang is planning to go, so he came to ask Zhang Feiyuan. In his previous life, Zhang Feiyuan did not go. After finally finishing the college entrance examination, he would rather go home and lie down. But this life is different. Zhang Feiyuan knows that in his previous life, it was because he did not work hard in the early stages that he was so miserable in the later stages. Now, even though he has the memories of his previous life, he lacks sufficient start-up capital. Although his salary is not high, every little bit helps. He can work while considering his future during the summer vacation. Thinking about this, he nodded silently, okay, I agree, let's do it together. Ha! I thought you would refuse. It seems that failing the college entrance exam has given you a lot of insight, and you have grown up. Zhang Liang pretended to be old-fashioned. Go! I've returned to childhood. Chanshui Hospital? At this moment, the place is bustling with people. My cousin is about 30 years old, with a few stray whiskers on his chin. He looks like an ordinary person. Upon seeing the two of them arrive, he straightens up and slightly raises his tone. Liang, why are you so late? Is this your friend? Gong Chenghui looks at Zhang Feiyuan with a slight look of scrutiny in his eyes. Zhang Liang smiles. Yes, cousin, this is my best friend. Didn't you say that you could let us work in this hospital for a while? We're all ready. Well, that's what I said. I've already spoken to the higher-ups, and from now on you'll be working with me here, maintaining environmental hygiene. But remember one thing, be careful, and don't talk so much, just do your work. Cousin Zhang Liang had an old-fashioned style, with a slight hint of bureaucratic tone. Zhang Liang immediately whispered in Zhang Feiyuan's ear to explain, my cousin talks like this, but he's actually a very nice person, so don't mind him. Zhang Feiyuan would never mind, and he smiled and nodded in response. Hurry up. Get out of the way. As soon as my cousin finished speaking, a voice rang out. Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang were listening in silence and were also startled by the sudden sound. A mobile hospital bed that could lie down flat for one person was being quickly pushed by a group of white coats. On the bed lay a woman whose dignified and luxurious temperament was still hard to hide, even though her eyes were closed. Chapter 2: A Familiar Woman. The woman was pale and looked like she had fainted. For some reason, when he saw this woman, Zhang Feiyuan suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. He even felt a sense of closeness. He couldn't help shaking his head. Why do I feel this way? Zhang Feiyuan didn't know that the people pushing the hospital bed were all the attending doctors at this hospital, as well as the hospital director himself. Cousin Gong Chenghui had worked here for a long time and recognized these hospital bigwigs at a glance, marveling in his heart. My goodness, what a guy! So many hospital bigwigs are pushing this hospital bed, what kind of person is lying in it? He couldn't understand it. What kind of big shot would send so many doctors to push a cart together? But he also knew his own weight, and it was obvious that it had nothing to do with him, not a world he could touch. After a burst of envy, he noticed that Zhang Feiyuan was staring at the mobile hospital bed, intently watching the woman. He couldn't help but want to warn him, come on, stop looking. She's not from our world. She's definitely a rich woman. Zhang Feiyuan didn't know any of this, but the feeling was really too strong. That sense of familiarity made him feel very surprised and puzzled, as if the two were inextricably linked. This was the first time he had felt this way about a woman, and Zhang Feiyuan felt that he must not have slept well the night before. Or was it a post-rebirth after effect? In any case, the mobile hospital bed had already been pushed into the emergency room corridor, and he was unable to see it anymore. Zhang Liang, who was standing nearby, also noticed this scene and said with emotion, that woman was really beautiful just now. I don't know if it was an illusion, but I feel that I look a bit like you, Commander Jiang. Having spent so much time with Zhang Feiyuan, Zhang Liang could clearly notice if a pimple had appeared on Zhang's face. Although the woman just now was pale, he still looked at her carefully, and the two people's facial features were extremely similar. Zhang Feiyuan was stunned. It's true, after Zhang Liang's reminder, he also noticed this. But before he could think about it, he heard Gong Chenghui laughing next to him. Come on, there are too many people in the world who look alike. Do you really think they're all related? Out of the question. Gong Chenghui's words were beyond reproach. If the two people looked alike, it meant they were related, and that would be too much of a coincidence. There are a lot of coincidences in the world, but this. Zhang Feiyuan felt that it was a bit far-fetched. He had just been reborn. And obviously, the other person is in a precarious situation, so he can't just go up and ask, do we have any relationship? I feel like I look a lot like you. I'm afraid that as soon as the words left my mouth, I was thrown out by those bodyguards. There were too many people just now. In addition to the attending doctors and the dean, there were many black-clad bodyguards trailing behind. The burly ones could probably eat 2 hens at a meal. Yes, Zhang Feiyuan is not short, at 1.8 meters, but he has never trained. At most, while he is still young, his physical strength is a bit stronger. Okay, stop looking, there is no trace of him. Work hard, if you are found to be lazy, I can't save you. Gong Chenghui said, and walked directly in front of them to block their view. Zhang Feiyuan had thought that cleaning in a hospital meant having a broom in hand and being the boss. He was really naive. If you use a broom in a large hospital, I'm afraid it will take forever to clean. There are special cleaning machines that only need to be controlled by humans. My cousin pushed a large sweeper while saying from time to time, we also need to be a bit discerning when cleaning on weekdays. When there are particularly many people, we just stop. The three of them worked together on their own tasks. Cleaning does not require any special skills. Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang quickly got the hang of it. Working quietly, the three soon split up to clean, with Zhang Feiyuan passing by the emergency ward alone. A burst of discussion reached Zhang Feiyuan's ears. I don't care what methods you use, if anything happens to the people inside, all of you are ready to pack up and go back to your hometowns. The woman's voice was very pleasant. It carried anger. Without seeing her, one could sense that this woman must be young. Zhang Feiyuan guessed that she was at most in her 20s, and would not be over 30. Morong Ran, with long hair streaming down her back, was wearing a refined OL uniform. Her face was cold, and at the moment, it did not look good. The person inside is the big boss, and she is also her adoptive mother. If anything happens, she won't be able to take it. Miss Morong, it's really not that we won't save her, it's just that the big boss's blood type is too rare, Rh-negative blood, and even our hospital doesn't have any in stock. The dean was full of worry. This big boss is no ordinary person. He doesn't show off his wealth, but he is the owner of this hospital. And the dean also knows some insider information, that this big boss is a super hidden rich man. Most of the visible rich people in the entire southern city are related to this big boss in one way or another, and they are all very obedient. Once, he went to a party where there were a lot of rich people. When he saw this woman, he was like a grandson seeing his grandmother, and the expression of respect and awe is unforgettable to this day. He has no doubt about Morong Yenlan's words. As long as she wants, this hospital can be closed at any time. But there is nothing he can do about it. This big boss's blood type is too rare. Even if you go find it right now, I'm afraid it's already too late. Thinking about this, the dean sighed and was prepared to pack up and leave. Morong Yenlan's pretty face was full of anger. What have you been doing to feed yourselves? If you don't have it, go find it. As long as you can find it, no amount of money is a problem. After saying this, she angrily pounded on the wall. For the first time, Morong Yenran felt so powerless. She also knew the preciousness of her mother's blood type. No one expected that an accident would happen while she was out. They were completely unprepared. She took her mother's surname and had been an orphan since childhood. It was Morong Shu who had raised her and spent a lot of money on her education. She had already learned what had happened. Morong Shu had gone out in the morning and had told her bodyguards to follow from a distance. But then something had happened, and she had encountered a robber who had mistakenly injured Morong Shu. Morong Nuran had nowhere to vent her anger. Looking at the bodyguards, who were bowing their heads in fear, she frowned and said, "You are in the same boat. If anything happens to the boss, just you wait." The bodyguards all trembled, and a few of them had foreign faces. They knew the energy of the big boss very well. If anything really happened to the big boss, they could imagine the consequences because of their ineffective protection. They didn't dare to speak at all. "That. I am Rh-negative blood. If needed, I might be able to help." Zhang Feiyuan's voice sounded, making everyone's eyes suddenly brighten. Chapter 3, Awakening. Zhang Feiyuan could not ignore that feeling of extreme intimacy. He also happened to have Rh-negative blood, and if he could save this woman, he might be able to find an answer. At the moment, he was pushing the cleaning robot, and after saying those words, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Morong Nara was even more dazed, and then quickly came to Zhang Feiyuan. "Really? You really have Rh-negative blood?" The dean and several attending physicians also came quickly, looking at Zhang Feiyuan as if he were a straw to clutch. If anything happened to the big boss inside, then there would be trouble. It was just hard to believe that a man claiming to have Rh-negative blood would just appear. This blood type was extremely rare, and they didn't dare say it casually. Zhang Feiyuan nodded. "Yes, I have Rh-negative blood. I've donated blood before, and it was found out. If you don't believe me, you can have a blood test on the spot." In fact, Zhang Feiyuan sold blood in his previous life because he didn't have enough money for internet fees, and he sold some blood. Since then, he has learned that he is extremely rare Rh-negative blood. "Okay, then would you please come with me for a moment?" The dean didn't care, and at a time like this, if treatment wasn't administered quickly, Morong Shu would be in danger. Zhang Feiyuan nodded and followed the dean for a brief blood test, quickly confirming the authenticity of his Rh-negative blood. Morong Naren's face was agitated, and she couldn't help but grasp Zhang Feiyuan's hand tightly. "Young man, if my mother can get better, you can ask for whatever you want. a life-saving straw. There was no doubt that Zhang Feiyuan was Morong Shu's life-saving straw at the moment. Zhang Feiyuan nodded silently. The woman in front of him was extraordinarily beautiful, but he didn't feel the same sense of familiarity as before. He just hoped that he could save the woman to verify his guess in his heart. After that, Zhang Feiyuan was dragged away to have his blood drawn. The blood drawn was taken away to the emergency room, and he didn't know the rest. He just waited quietly outside, sitting on a bench in the corridor while Morong Naren paced anxiously nearby. "Beauty, why don't you sit down for a while? You're really dizzying when you keep moving around." Morong Naren had a great figure, and coupled with her face like a fairy or movie star, it was hard for people to take their eyes off her as she swayed back and forth. Her pair of long, white legs were dazzling, and her skin was so good. Morong Naren glanced at Zhang Feiyuan, and after a moment of silence, nodded. Then she sat down next to Zhang Feiyuan, and the remaining bodyguards immediately stared over. If the second boss has anything else happen to him, they will really be finished if they don't protect the big boss. Morong Naren has seen countless people, and naturally she can tell that Zhang Feiyuan is just an ordinary young man. She waved her hand and said, "You all turn around and just stand around." "Yes." They didn't dare to contradict this woman's words, and quietly turned around without daring to look. Zhang Feiyuan secretly licked his lips, exclaiming that this woman was really something. "Are you an employee of this hospital?" Morong Nanran looked at Zhang Feiyuan and asked. "Well, today is the first day I started working here, it's just a coincidence." Morong Yanran nodded. It was indeed quite a coincidence. If it wasn't for Zhang Feiyuan, she didn't know what she would do. She had a good impression of this man. Even if she couldn't save Morong Shu, she was able to step forward at this time, and they already owed her a favor. "By the way, beautiful lady, what is your relationship with that aunt in the hospital room?" Zhang Feiyuan asked out his own doubts. He wanted to know what was going on. Because of her favorable impression of Zhang Feiyuan, coupled with the feeling that he was just an ordinary person, Morong Nararan, by some strange coincidence, did not refuse to answer. She glanced at Zhang Feiyuan and opened her red lips lightly. "That's my adoptive mother. I was an orphan since I was young, and she raised me. She is a very gentle person. Good people should live a long life, shouldn't they?" "Yes, good people should live a long life. I agree with you. She will definitely be fine." "What exactly happened? Why was she hurt so badly?" Zhang Feiyuan asked this question again, which made Morong Nararan sigh. "An accident. She was carelessly injured by a robber, cutting some arteries and bleeding a lot." Zhang Feiyuan was silent, and then continued, "I don't think you are from here. Why did you come here?" A series of questions. Even if Morong Naran was slow to react, she could tell that Zhang Feiyuan seemed to be particularly concerned about Morong Shu. She was suspicious and guarding herself. She paid close attention to Zhang Feiyuan's face and suddenly felt a shock. From the first time she saw Zhang Feiming, she always felt a sense of familiarity. Now she realized that Zhang Feiyuan looked very similar to Morong Shu. His face was soft and beautiful, and although he was a man, he gave people a feeling of being embraced by spring breeze. She answered the question, "My adoptive mother once had a biological son who was kidnapped by a group of human traffickers 15 years ago. Later, the traffickers were found, but they all died due to internal conflicts, and the whereabouts of her elderly biological son are unknown. I have been searching for so many years, but to no avail. By chance, I heard that there was some news here, so I came to take a look, and I never expected this to happen." Zhang Feiyuan's body trembled. It was as if he had understood something, and his heart was filled with excitement. Since he was young, he had always envied others for having parents. In his previous life, he had also been looking for his biological parents, but he never found them until the end. Could it be that I have met her just after being reborn in this life? He felt a little unbelievable. Even if he hadn't appeared here, Morong Shu might have come to the end of her life today. If Morong Shu really was his biological mother, then no matter how he searched in the last life, he would never have found her. Just as he was about to ask some more questions, a doctor walked out, his face full of excitement. "Okay, it's saved, the boss is out of danger." Morong Naran also felt a shock in her body and suddenly stood up. Her body trembled. She had really been scared just now, scared that Morong Shurun would really pass away. Just as she was about to go over, Morong Yenran remembered something and took out her phone to take a picture of Zhang Feiyuan. In the astonished gaze of Zhang Feiyuan, she quickly said, "Please wait outside for a while. We will repay you. Please don't go." After she finished speaking, she still felt uneasy and gave a wink to a few bodyguards. A few bodyguards came over, and more than 10 pairs of eyes fixed Zhang Feiyuan in their sights. Judging from the situation, it was impossible for Zhang Feiyuan to leave. I've never seen such a way to repay a favor. Morong Yenran soon arrived at the hospital room. At the moment, Morong Shu had already woken up, but she was still a bit weak. Her face was slightly pale, but she was out of danger. Seeing her daughter, she smiled. "Narain, you're here. I should be fine. I already know what happened. Please thank the young man who donated his blood for me." Chapter 4, They recognize each other and Naran's mother is generous. After Mu Rongshu woke up, she understood the situation and knew that someone with her blood type had helped. Even she sighed that it was a blessing from heaven. She still had a wish that she hadn't fulfilled yet, and that was to find her long-lost son. "I'll thank you in person when I'm better," Mu Rongshu added. Mu Rong Naran didn't rush to agree, but looked at Mu Rongshu excitedly. "Mom, don't worry, I have some good news, I may have found Xiao Yuan." "What?" Morong Shu's body trembled. She looked at Morong Naran with disbelief. Her son had always been a source of worry for her. She had looked for him for so many years, and her health had deteriorated day by day. Even she was about to give up. When she learned that her son might be in this city, she didn't hold out much hope. But she would never doubt Morong Naran's words. She knew that Morong Naran would never joke about something like this unless she was absolutely certain. Morong Naran had been observing Zhang Feiyuan before, and from what she had seen of his performance, she had already guessed. What's more, the two of them had the same blood type, so it was all just too coincidental. It was as if the coincidence was the truth itself. "Naran, tell us, what's going on?" Morong Shu was agitated, and she took Morong Naran's hands. "Mom, first take a look at this photo." Morong Naran didn't rush to explain, but first showed Morong Shu the photo of Zhang Feiyuan. "This. It's so similar." Morong Shu froze on the hospital bed, unable to hold back, and sat up gently, taking the phone and looking at it carefully. The more she looked, the more familiar it became. Zhang Feiyuan in the photo looked like her in both expression and appearance. If the two stood together, no one would believe they weren't related. "Naran, who is this person? Where did you take this photo?" Morong Shu asked urgently, her face full of impatience. Morong Naran smiled. "Mom, don't worry, the person is at the hospital." "Let me tell you slowly. You've just recovered, so lie back down." She gently helped Morong Shu sit down before she began to tell her what had happened. "That person is outside the hospital right now. I've already told my bodyguards to keep an eye on him. Earlier, you asked me to thank the person who donated blood for you, right? That person is him." Morong Shu's body trembled again. She was a little incoherent. "Yes, that's right, it must be my son. Both his father and I are Rh negative, so our child is too, and he looks so much like me." Morong Shu had never been so excited before, as if the flowers of spring were blooming in her heart. "Quick, Naran, help me up, I want to go see him." Morong Shu tried to get up again, and Morong Naran was startled. She quickly held her down and reassured her. "Mom, just wait here. I'll bring him in. If nothing goes wrong, he should really be Xiao Yuan." "Okay, go ahead." Morong Shu lay down helplessly, feeling weak all over. When Morong Naran appeared in front of Zhang Feiyuan and told him about this, Zhang Feiyuan was stunned. Sure enough, that sense of familiarity wasn't just in his head. His guess might be true. "Let's go, little brother, come with me to meet her. If it's not her, it's okay, we'll repay you for your blood donation." Zhang Feiyuan nodded, didn't say much, and followed silently. Morong Shu had been transferred to a special, isolated room, and it was very quiet around them. As soon as he entered, and saw Morong Shu up close, Zhang Feiyuan's entire body suddenly trembled. The feeling of being connected by blood seemed even stronger, and he was almost certain that he must be intricately linked to this woman. Morong Shu felt the same way. Looking at Zhang Feiyuan's face, there were tears welling up in her eyes. "My child, come over here and let me take a look." "Okay." Zhang Feiyuan walked over, and Morong Shu stared at him intently. "My child, what is your name?" Morong Shu asked carefully. "My name is Zhang Feiyuan. When I was little and my aunt found me, I had a jade pendant with the character Yuan on it, so she named me after it." As he spoke, Zhang Feiyuan took off a small jade pendant from his neck. After wearing it for so many years, it looked a little worn. However, the character Yuan on it was still very clear. After seeing it, Morong Shu just froze for a moment, then embraced Zhang Feiyuan in a hug. My child, it really is you. I'm your mother. I had this jade pendant custom made for you. Sure enough. Zhang Feiyuan had always felt that this jade pendant was related to his own life story. Even when he was at his lowest ebb in his previous life, he never sold it, even though he knew it was very valuable. At that moment, he was finally sure that he had found his biological mother. Although they were a bit unfamiliar with each other, there was no mistake about the feeling that blood is thicker than water. Zhang Feiyuan also embraced Morong Shu silently, overcome with emotion. Morong Naran, who was standing nearby, also smiled, happy for Morong Shu. The mother and son embraced for a long time before Zhang Feiyuan realized that Morong Shu had just come out of the critical period. He immediately helped her lie down, a little worried. Dear mother, you lie down and rest first, we have plenty of time to chat later. Dear mother? Puff. Morong Shu couldn't help but laugh out loud. I'm fine, I already feel much better now, and the wound has been taken care of. It was hard to find you, so you have to stay with me, don't think about leaving so soon. Morong Shu tightly grasped Zhang Feiyuan's hand, for fear that if she let go, she would lose her new son. Zhang Feiyuan gave a simple smile and did not say anything more. However, because of the excessive movement, the small notebook in his pocket accidentally fell to the side of the bed. Morong Shu immediately gently picked it up and flipped through it. When she saw the series of plans written on it, she could not help but feel a little distressed. Her son had been having such a hard time all these years, struggling to make ends meet. He had to give up going to college and find a way to make money? As his mother, she felt so much remorse. Son, I have money, so forget all these plans of yours. Do whatever you want, don't worry about money. In the future, do whatever you want, just don't work hard. Naran, give my supplementary card to Xiao Yuan first. From now on, I won't let my son suffer anymore. Morong Shu said to Morong Naran, never taking her eyes off Zhang Feiyuan, her face showing extreme affection. Okay, Mom. Morong Naran replied, then took out her handbag and handed Zhang Feiyuan a black card from inside. It's just a secondary card for casual expenses, and there's only a little over 100 million in it. I'll transfer more money to you after you spend it all. This. Zhang Feiyuan froze. He had thought that his own mother would be very rich, but he had never imagined that she would be so generous. Just over 100 million? What kind of conditions would allow her to say that? Seeing Zhang Feiyuan in a daze, Morong Naran directly shoved the card into his hands. The password is 6/8. In the future, if you need anything, you can find me. To be honest, I can be considered your sister. Chapter 5, A Lifetime of Blessings. My real sister. Zhang Feiyuan excitedly hugged Morong Narara, making her flustered and quickly blushing. Brother, you have to be a little quieter. Zhang Feiyuan's hug was so tight that it made her a little breathless. Morong Narara didn't stop Zhang Feiyuan from being so excited. Morong Shu, who was lying there, couldn't help but turn black in the face. Narara, you go out first, I'll talk to Xiao Yuan for a while. Morong Naran only then stepped out of Zhang Feiyuan's embrace. Her face was still flushed, but she nodded lightly and closed the door behind her. After Morong Shu had left, she gave Zhang Feiyuan a reproachful look and beckoned him, come here, sit next to me. This hospital is owned by our family, so don't worry about anyone disturbing us. Listen, a real mother is different. Zhang Feiyuan had once fantasized that he was a rich second generation, with a generous hand and the ability to buy whatever he wanted. But when the day finally came, he felt extremely unreal. Was he really a rich second generation? If it weren't for those human traffickers, he wouldn't have suffered so much contempt for no reason. He had taken so many detours. How miserable he had been in his previous life, those damned human traffickers. Zhang Feiyuan sat over, and Morong Shu tightly grasped his hand. She put the small notebook back in his pocket and said earnestly, Xiao Yuan, that's your sister. Don't keep staring at her. She has a fiancé, a member of the royal family of Ingwa. Before I couldn't find you, and Naran was always by my side, so I set her up with someone in the hope that she would marry into a good family. Although they only met once, they had an engagement after all. We promised someone, so it's not good to go back on our word. Mom knows that it's only natural for men to like women, but our family is rich, so in the future, if you see any woman you like, just tell me and I'll get you all kinds of women. Morong Shu felt a little helpless. She had just found her precious son, and seeing him hugging her so tightly just now had made Morong Naran blush. She was a little worried about this matter, and it was really hard to say what would happen in the future. She wanted to give a heads up in advance to avoid trouble. There is one thing she didn't say: if the two of them really get together, at most they will lose face a little, and they can just cancel the marriage contract. But thinking about it, the two of them are meeting for the first time after all, so it is best to avoid it if possible. After all, she also treats Morong Naran as her own daughter, and if something really happens between the two of them, it will still make her feel strange. Zhang Feiyuan thought it was something else when he heard this, and immediately nodded. Okay, I got it. Don't worry, biological mother, it's just that we just met for the first time, and we were just too excited just now. I didn't expect Morong Shu to think so far ahead. Zhang Feiyuan hadn't thought about it that much. After that, the two had a long discussion about family matters. Morong Shu was a little tired, and Zhang Feiyuan was the one to go out. Even after he had left the door, Zhang Feiyuan was a little dazed as he looked at the black card in his hand. So he had just become a super rich young master? And he had also found his biological mother? Good things come in pairs? Hello, young master. As soon as he had left the door, the 8 bodyguards stood at the door, bowed their bodies, and shouted at Zhang Feiyuan. It startled him. He reacted quickly, raised his hand and smiled. You're welcome. We're family now. Zhang Feiyuan quickly adapted to his new status as a young master. Although he didn't know how rich his real mother was, the fact that he had become a rich second generation was already a foregone conclusion. Yes, young master. The 8 bodyguards stood up, firmly standing there, looking like they were waiting quietly for Zhang Feiyuan's orders. Morong Naran was not far away, explaining to the doctor the follow-up maintenance and recovery of Morong Shu. She saw Zhang Feiyuan come out and say a few words to the doctor. At the moment, she had already resumed her appearance as a strong woman. She swayed her waist and walked slowly. When she saw Zhang Feiyuan, she smiled and said, Feiyuan, in the future, if you need these bodyguards, just let them follow you and protect your safety. Zhang Feiyuan immediately waved his hands repeatedly upon hearing this. No, I can't even eat if I'm being stared at by so many people. These bodyguards were obviously not ordinary people. If Zhang Feiyuan didn't understand what it meant to be murderous before, he was able to empathize with them upon seeing them. That aura of murderous intent was exactly the same as the bodyguards he had seen on TV. How can that be? It was so hard to find you. If you have any more problems, how will I live in the future? How about this? Half of them will be assigned to you, and they will protect you in secret. As long as they don't appear in front of you normally, there shouldn't be any problems, right? Morong Ran looked at Zhang Feiyuan and asked inquiringly. She already regarded Zhang Feiyuan as her own younger brother, and naturally she took good care of him. Zhang Feiyuan thought about it for a moment and did not refuse again. Thinking about his different identity now, he would inevitably encounter some trouble in the future, and having a few bodyguards secretly protecting him would make him safer. Very well, then I'll trouble you, Sister Ran. Is it okay if I call you that from now on? Zhang Feiyuan asked with a smile. Ha ha. Of course it's fine. You can come to me for anything in the future. Those two over there are your friends, aren't they? They've been staring over here since just now. Morong Ran pointed at the corner of the hospital aisle, where Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui were peeking over to look over here. The two of them were feeling 100 different emotions at the moment. Gong Chenghui's face was even more painful. He had previously said that Zhang Feiyuan was whimsical, but he never imagined that he would actually have a relationship with this obviously wealthy woman who was a big shot. They had just split up to clean the hospital, and then they couldn't find Zhang Feiyuan, so they looked around. However, on the way, they heard some shocking news. Zhang Feiyuan was actually a rich second generation, and he was the biological son of the rich woman who had been sent to the emergency room. Many doctors and nurses were discussing it, and now the news had spread throughout the hospital. This is not something shameful, there is no need to hide it, so Morong Naran also ignored it. And it's good to spread the word, so that in the future these people won't even recognize their own young master. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui had also inquired about the rich woman's news, and this whole hospital was owned by her. And now Zhang Feiyuan is the rich woman's son, so in theory, they are working for Zhang Feiyuan. Apart from the twists and turns of fate, they didn't know how to describe their feelings at the moment. Gong Chenghui was even more embarrassed. He had worked here for many years, and never imagined that he was working for Zhang Feiyuan. And he had even mocked Zhang Feiyuan before. A cold sweat broke out on his back. He quickly grabbed Zhang Liang's arm and said, Xiao Liang, I'm your cousin, so you have to help me say something nice later, so that this young master doesn't hold a grudge and get me fired. Zhang Liang was also happy for Zhang Feiyuan at the moment, and when he heard this, he thought it was nothing. He waved his hand and said, "What do you take my brother for? He's not that petty. Plus, you're my cousin, so as long as you hang out with him, you won't lack for food or clothing. You're actually thinking about these trivial matters. Do you look down on the relationship between my brother and me?" Gong Chenghui seemed to understand something, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Xiao Liang, having a cousin like you is a blessing for your cousin for life." Chapter 6 Lishui Hotel. That's a bit harsh. But I'm warning you, my buddy is in a special position now, so you need to be careful what you say when you see him in the future. If it's like it used to be, there's nothing I can do. Zhang Liang knows his cousin very well. Over the years, he has achieved nothing, which has changed his personality and made him like to pick on other people. Hey, that's for sure, cousin understands. Gong Chenghui felt that this was an opportunity for him. In the past, there was no such opportunity to get in touch with a rich young man like Zhang Feiyuan. As long as he gets along well with Zhang Feiyuan and relies on Zhang Liang's relationship, he will definitely become rich and powerful in the future. At the same time, he also envied Zhang Feiyuan a little, as he was so lucky to have such a rich mother-in-law. I'm quite looking forward to watching Zhang Feiyuan walk slowly. After bidding farewell to Morong Narin, Zhang Feiyuan walked towards the two of them, casually throwing the small notebook into the trash can as he passed. This plan is useless. With different statuses, there's no point in trying. Zhang Dashui, you're awesome now. I told you before that you looked a lot like that auntie, but I didn't realize you had such a background. Zhang Liang's eyebrows jumped about, and he spoke with a beaming smile. Hello, Yuan Gu. I was superficial before. The first time I saw you, I felt that you had an extraordinary temperament and a majestic bearing. Gong Chenghui promptly flattered him. Zhang Feiyuan was speechless. This Gong Chenghui didn't say this before. But he didn't bother to argue. After all, this person had spoken the truth before, and after all, it was difficult to predict such things. It was too surprising. Plus, he was Zhang Liang's cousin, so how could Zhang Feiyuan be so petty-minded? He laughed on hearing this and waved his hand. It's almost noon, let's go, I'll take you out for a big meal. He now had over 100 million yuan in his hands, so it was impossible for Morong Narin to cheat him. He was a bona fide rich man. The rebirth plan had already been changed. His next task was mainly to squander money. His adoptive mother had said that he could just relax and be a spendthrift in the future and not worry about anything else. What else could he say? Haha, that's good, I want to eat roast chicken. Zhang Liang remembered the delicious roast chicken from the restaurant next to the school, and his mouth watered uncontrollably. Because the business was so good, a single roast chicken could sell for 80 yuan, and he could never afford to eat it before. Now that Zhang Feiyuan had just found a rich woman as his adoptive mother, he must be very rich, and he should be able to easily treat himself to a roast chicken. Gong Chenghui just smiled on the side, and he also dared not say much. He could eat anything, as long as he could get along well with Zhang Feiyuan. Zhang Feiyuan couldn't help but slap him in the face with a slipper when he heard that this was his best friend's only request. He has no imagination at all. He's going to eat roast chicken with 100 million yuan? Where's the extravagance of a rich man? Look at how little you've achieved, and this is your wish to eat roast chicken? I won't go this time, I can't afford to lose face. I'll give you 20 to take away. You can take any you can't finish back home and feed it to the dog if it goes bad. If your dog can't finish it, feed it to the neighbor's dog. Zhang Feiyuan waved his hand, looking so rich that Zhang Liang's breathing quickened. Just how rich is his adopted mother? In Zhang Liang's mind, a rich person who can eat roast chicken every day must be very happy. After all, he doesn't have the experience of Zhang Feiyuan's previous life, and is just a recent graduate. Then I'll listen to you, we'll eat whatever you say. Zhang Liang rubbed his hands together and stopped talking about the roast chicken. Well, just follow me. Zhang Feiyuan had actually already made up his mind just now and was about to set off, but Gong Chenghui quickly spoke up. Well, can I ask the supervisor for some leave first? Zhang Feiyuan is the boss's own son, so naturally he doesn't need to, but he is just an ordinary employee. If he doesn't say anything, who knows his relationship with Zhang Feiyuan? Hey, no, you guys just go ahead, what leave? In the future, Brother Hui can come to work whenever he wants. A chubby middle-aged man. He was the head of the hospital's logistics department and extremely well informed. He had long known what was going on here and had been watching silently. Seeing that Gong Chenghui had gone so close to Jiang Feiyuan, he knew that he could no longer treat this person as an ordinary employee. Gong Chenghui felt a burst of pride. At the same time, he cursed himself for saying all that nonsense before. He couldn't help but look at Jiang Feiyuan's face again. Seeing that Jiang Feiyuan did not have any expression on his face, he let out a sigh of relief. Young master, I am the head of the logistics department here. My name is Zhu Shi Huang. Whatever you want, just give the order. Zhu Shi Huang hurriedly introduced himself. Even if he could not have anything to do with Jiang Feiyuan, he still wanted to leave a good impression with Jiang Feiyuan. Yes, Zhu Shi Huang, I'll remember that. Then we'll be going now. Jiang Feiyuan didn't really like Gong Chenghui, but since he was Zhang Liang's cousin, he was just along for the ride. Lishui Hotel. The three of them arrived here shortly after leaving the hospital. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui couldn't help but swallow a few times as they looked at the magnificent scene before them. As the only five-star hotel in Nanchang, it was usually frequented by wealthy and powerful people. Their appearance and temperament were obviously out of place here. Only Jiang Feiyuan was fine. Morong Shu's genes, coupled with the memories of his previous life, made Jiang Feiyuan look very indifferent. After all, in his previous life, he often accompanied the clients as a little karaoke singer, and he had entered the hotel a lot. But he had never entered this Lishui hotel before. The company he was in his previous life was also very ordinary, and he was usually entertained in those ordinary hotels. Big brother, are we really going to have lunch here? Zhang Liang's tone was a bit stuttered. He naturally knew about this hotel, but never imagined that he would one day be able to eat in such a place. Moreover, he had heard that the most common consumption in this hotel would cost tens of thousands of yuan. Gong Chenghui, who was standing next to him, also felt the same way. Naturally, he also yearned for it, but this was not a place for someone like him to come to. He never dared to think about it before. His relationship with Jiang Feiyuan was not as good as Zhang Liang's, and now he was even more cautious when speaking. He simply did not say anything and acted as a little follower. That's right, we'll eat here, and Jesus himself can't stop us. Jiang Feiyuan waved his hand nonchalantly. He was rich and could do whatever he wanted. Commander Jiang, look, there's Lin Tongtong. Zhang Liang had just recovered from the shock when he suddenly pointed at the two people who had arrived at the door. He knew one of them, Lin Tongtong, and she was being held by the waist by a man. The man was wearing an Armani suit, a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, and his hair was slicked back. They were acting affectionately. Lin Tongtong was trying to resist, but she looked like she was in love. Zhang Liang knew that Lin Tongtong was Jiang Feiyuan's girlfriend and they were also classmates. Now they had just graduated and she was cheating on him? Zhang Liang regretted what he had said. Wasn't this just provoking Jiang Feiyuan? But when he looked at Jiang Feiyuan, he noticed that he was only slightly surprised and didn't look angry. Chapter 7, Hotel Manager. Jiang Feiyuan, who had already lived a second life, had long known what kind of person Lin Tongtong was. Not long after graduating in the previous life, Lin Tongtong had proposed to break up. At the time, he had pleaded with her to stay. Now he thought about it, he was young and didn't know any better. It turned out that there had been early signs, and Lin Tongtong had long been involved with another man. He also knew this man, a rich second generation, the son of the Zhang Group's CEO, known as Zhang Gongzi, the kind of man who often shouts in the bar that I'll pay for today's consumption. Jiang Feiyuan also knew that this Zhang Gongzi was just playing with Lin Tongtong. He would dump her in no time. Jiang Feiyuan, who had already been heartbroken once, just glanced at her and waved his hand, saying, "Don't worry about her." He didn't even bother to say hello. Have they already broken up? Why haven't I heard this guy mention it? Zhang Liang muttered to himself. At this time, Lin Tongtong also noticed Jiang Feiyuan in their gazes, and she was suddenly shocked and immediately turned around. After all, she hadn't broken up with Jiang Feiyuan yet, and when she saw the scene, her face turned red. However, she soon discovered that Jiang Feiyuan just glanced at her and then walked on his own way, passing right by her without even looking at her. This made her flinch, as she had been trying to avoid his gaze. What did this mean? This man obviously liked her so much. Just now, she had been worried that Jiang Feiyuan would cause trouble and thus anger Mr. Zhang. But this man had simply ignored her? Lin Tongtong couldn't accept it for a moment. She couldn't help but call out to Jiang Feiyuan, can't you see me? Some people are like this. If you pamper them every day, they won't know how to behave and will take it for granted. If you ignore them, they won't be able to accept it and will be greatly irritated. In his previous life, Jiang Feiyuan knew that Lin Tongtong had always treated him like a spare tire. Later, when she saw that he had achieved nothing, she decisively left him, saying that she didn't want to burden him. Jiang Feiyuan was quite grateful to Lin Tongtong, as it did lighten his load. Hearing Lin Tongtong's voice, Jiang Feiyuan's mouth curled up into a smile. I see, what's up? Is there something the matter? Ha! Lin Tongtong was flustered. This clingy bug, the guy who couldn't stand to see her speak to another man for more than a few words, was now so calm? His waist was being held by another man. And now even a fool can see that the two of them are here to have sex. He's not angry at all? He's smiling? Zhang Liang, who was standing nearby, was also a bit dazed. He felt that Jiang Feiyuan might have psychological problems because he had been subjected to too much stimulation. He was just too calm. His girlfriend was cheating on him. I'm your girlfriend. Can't you see what I'm doing? Lin Tongtong didn't know what had come over her, and she blurted out these words at that moment. Jiang Feiyuan nodded when he heard this. Well, I see. Then from now on, we're breaking up. You're dumped by me. Understand? In her previous life, this woman had dumped herself, and she had originally thought of just ending it quietly. But she insisted on asking, so he would not hold back. Dumped me? Lin Tongtong looked at Jiang Feiyuan in disbelief. She had been struggling with when it would be appropriate to dump Jiang Feiyuan, but now it had turned around. Although they must break up, she should be the one to initiate it. Jiang Feiyuan finished speaking and walked directly towards the hotel, not even glancing at the stunned Lin Tongtong. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui hurriedly followed. Zhang Gongzi was also surprised to see this. He always knew that Lin Tongtong had a boyfriend and was still looking for him to cheat. He was just having fun. Lin Tongtong likes money, and he likes Lin Tongtong's body. Each takes what they need. But he never expected that this man would be so tough and directly dump Lin Tongtong. He suddenly felt that this woman was so cheap. He originally liked the sense of accomplishment of stealing someone else's girlfriend. At this moment, because of this matter, he had lost a lot of excitement. It made him feel a little bad. Lin Tongtong also reacted to the words she had just said, and looked carefully at Zhang Gongzi on the side. Zhang Gongzi, you heard it too. I just broke up with that man, and in the future, she will be yours alone. This is her own patron. Jiang Feiyuan doesn't care about that side of things, but if Master Zhang doesn't like her, she won't be able to accept it. Ha, it's fine, just don't want that kind of poor kid. Let's go in, the room is all set up. Since they were already here, Master Zhang looked at Lin Tongtong's white legs under her short skirt and couldn't help but lick his lips, aroused by her. After playing with her a few more times, he would get bored and throw her away. At that moment, Jiang Feiyuan had already entered the hotel lobby. When he saw the black card Jiang Feiyuan took out, the receptionist was stunned for a long time. Then he quickly called the hotel manager. In a short time, a man with gold-rimmed glasses quickly came to Jiang Feiyuan's side. Hello, young master. The hotel manager gave a deep bow of 180 degrees. Ha! Jiang Feiyuan was stunned, and he couldn't help but have an additional guess in his heart. This hotel can't be my own mother, too, can it? This is the Lishui Hotel? How many properties does one's own mother have? Jiang Feiyuan's thoughts were confirmed by the hotel manager's next words. Why didn't you give us any advance notice of your arrival, young master? Miss Morome already gave us notice, and it is truly an honor to have you here. Jiang Feiyuan was quite pleased with the hotel manager's polite but unobtrusive flattery. Wiping the cold sweat from his brow in silence, the hotel manager had just received the news not long ago that they had an additional young master. The fact that he was able to produce the black card reserved for the big boss meant that he must be the young master. Fortunately, he came down early. If he had come later, I'm afraid that the manager's position would not necessarily be his tomorrow. This scene was also being watched by Lin Tongtong and Zhang Gongzi, who had been rushed in. Lin Tongtong then remembered that Jiang Feiyuan's family conditions had actually come to this Lishui hotel. It's just that she doesn't know the manager. Don't look at the hotel manager now, he's like a grandson in front of Jiang Feiyuan, but usually it's not a woman like Lin Tongtong who can meet him. But Zhang Gongzi is different, he knows the manager. At the moment, his heart is shocked. In Lin Tongtong's narrative, Jiang Feiyuan has always been just a poor kid, the kind who doesn't even have biological parents. But the situation in front of his eyes seems to be completely different from what Lin Tongtong said. The hotel manager would not have treated him with such respect. In fact, when he met the manager, he even had to be polite. Zhang Feiyuan, what's wrong with you? Have you been hiding something from me? How did you end up in a place like this? Lin Tongtong questioned. She felt that she had been deceived. Zhang Feiyuan was obviously not the kind of person he had claimed to be. If she had known this, she would not have gone to find another man. She even suspected at the moment that Zhang Feiyuan had a hidden identity, and that he might also be a rich second generation. She was not stupid, and from the shocked expression on Zhang Gongzi's face, she could tell that the man bowing and scraping before Zhang Feiyuan was probably not an ordinary person. The receptionists and waiters around them were all smiling, and Zhang Feiyuan was like the center of attention. He gave Lin Tongtong a faint look, and Zhang Feiyuan frowned. Does this have anything to do with you? We've already broken up. Chapter 8, A Man of Character. Of course it's related. You've been with me for so long and you never told me. Zhang Feiyuan, you liar. Lin Tongtong looked so angry that Zhang Feiyuan couldn't help but laugh. This woman had taken the initiative to cheat on him, and she was blaming him? If he hadn't had this rich woman as his mother and if this scene hadn't played out in front of him, this woman would still have left him without hesitation. I've never cheated on you, but I don't need to explain to you. You're really noisy, Zhang Feiyuan frowned. The hotel manager was also a sharp person, and immediately understood what was going on. He spoke indifferently, Miss, please respect yourself. Noisy behavior is prohibited in this hotel. If you continue like this, except for the young master, then you will have to leave. After saying this, he gave a wink, and several security guards immediately surrounded them. There was no doubt that once Lin Tongtong yelled again, these people would immediately throw her out. Young master? Lin Tongtong and Zhang Gongzi were both shocked. The hotel manager actually called Zhang Feiyuan young master, which meant that the hotel was owned by his family? This was amazing. In the entire Nanchang, who didn't know about Lishui Hotel, which was the #1 hotel? Its value was immeasurable. Even Zhang Gongzi regretted it a little. This was a great resource, and just because he played with an ordinary woman, he could never have a good relationship with Zhang Feiyuan. Looking at Lin Tongtong again, he couldn't help but feel a trace of disgust. There was no doubt that Zhang Feiyuan was also a rich second generation like him, and he knew some of the inside stories of the big boss behind Lishui Hotel. That was not something the Zhang family could compare to. Lin Tongtong also froze in place. She felt remorseful in her heart. If she had known that Zhang Feiyuan had this identity, she would not have cheated on him no matter what. After all, this man used to love her so much. The two were each thinking their own thoughts. Seeing the situation, Mr. Zhang came out to smooth things over. Here is my VIP card. I'm sorry, but we're really disturbing you. I had a room reserved earlier, so we'll be leaving first. He took Lin Tongtong away first, then severed ties with her, so that this woman wouldn't upset Zhang Feiyuan. He hoped that he might be able to maintain a good relationship with Zhang Feiyuan in the future. However, the hotel manager did not give him the chance. Upon hearing this, he sneered and raised his palm. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang, but I'm afraid you can no longer come to our Lishui hotel in the future. From today onwards, you will be blacklisted by our hotel. But don't worry, we will refund the money you previously deposited into your card. The hotel manager was not stupid. She knew exactly who the boss was, and in her eyes, the Lishui hotel was just a small business. If she offended her boss's son, she would resolutely not let him come in the future. Wouldn't that be an eyesore for Zhang Feiyuan? If he's offended, so be it. Does he dare say no? Master Zhang paused, his face looking a little bad, but he really didn't dare to make a scene, let alone fart. He could only suffer in silence. After a moment of silence, he smiled again. There's no need to refund the money. Whatever happened with your young master was my fault. Just consider it my apology money. I will definitely not come to this Lishui hotel again in the future. Then he looked at Lin Tongtong and continued, you should not come looking for me again in the future, we have no relationship. The Zhang group is very powerful, but it is only in this Nan city. Compared to the big boss behind the Lishui hotel, it is nothing. He must clear all ties with Lin Tongtong and find a way to reconcile with Zhang Feiyuan. At least he cannot let Zhang Feiyuan bear a grudge against him. Otherwise, the Zhang group may be in danger. Goodbye. Zhang Gongzi bowed to Zhang Feiyuan with a smile, and then turned directly without any hesitation. Lin Tongtong's body trembled, and she hurriedly chased after him. Zhang Gongzi, wait for me. Having already lost Jiang Feiyuan, if she also lost her golden Zhangongzi, Lin Tongtong would collapse. Jiang Feiyuan's face did not show it, but his heart was exploding. The energy of his own biological mother had once again taught him a good lesson. I'm afraid it far exceeds his imagination. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui were also secretly amazed and deeply felt the same way at the moment. Jiang Feiyuan came to the hotel, and these big shots were all too humble. He simply dared not offend them and could only smile. Young master, let me take you and your friends to your room first. Leave everything to me. You must be here for dinner, right? If there is anything you want to eat, just let me know. As long as the hotel has it, I will personally cook it for you. If the hotel doesn't have it, I will have it flown in immediately. The hotel manager's head was almost bent to the ground, and his face was full of flattery at the moment. No need to go to all that trouble. If the hotel has it, just bring it up. Jiang Feiyuan casually said something, and the hotel manager immediately nodded. After giving some instructions, he led the way in front and took Jiang Feiyuan and the others to an extremely luxurious room. It looked extremely luxurious. It was magnificent, like an ancient palace. The hotel manager said, "Young master, normally this place is not open to the public, and it is only open for some very important guests. Young master, you have come, so the hotel naturally has to use the most noble treatment." Jiang Feiyuan nodded lightly. "Well, the food can come as soon as possible, it is just a meal, no need to go to such trouble." "Hey, okay, young master, please wait a moment." Once the three had taken their seats, the hotel manager immediately clapped his hands. Then, three women with enchanting figures, dressed in cheongsams, and exceptionally beautiful, walked in. "Young master, it takes some time to cook, so let them keep you company and chat to pass the time. I'll leave first, you two chat." The hotel manager was very tactful, and after revealing a meaningful smile, he left. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui were stunned. These three women were too beautiful, and they had only seen such beauties on TV before. At the moment, they were unable to speak and just gulped. Zhang Liang suddenly grabbed Jiang Feiyuan's hand and was very excited. "Brother, it is my greatest luck to be able to be your buddy in this life. I won't say anything else, I'm going over to ask for a contact method." Zhang Liang walked over with a smile on his face, pulling one of the beauties close to have a long chat. After some initial awkwardness, Gong Chenghui also couldn't resist the temptation and pulled one close. Jiang Feiyuan was speechless. These two men really were men of character. The remaining woman was excited. She naturally knew that Jiang Feiyuan was the young master. If she could get on his good side, she might become a princess. She swayed her hips and gently tousled her hair before sitting down next to Jiang Feiyuan. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders and said, "Young master, let me keep you company. If you need anything, just tell me." "Ahem, okay, how old are you, young lady?" "I'm 24 years old. I used to study dance, and I'm not bad at it. Why don't I dance for you?" "Well, that would be nice." After Jiang Feiyuan nodded in agreement, the woman started to dance gracefully. A classical dance, coupled with the contrast of the cheongsam, was exceptionally beautiful. Chapter 9, A Well-Serviced Bodyguard. Unconsciously made people watch mesmerized. It wasn't until the dishes were served that Jiang Feiyuan reacted. There were all kinds of seafood, abalone, birds' nests, and all kinds of delicately carved food. During the meal, Zhang Liang and his cousin Gong Chenghui were busy marveling. Accompanied by a beautiful woman, Jiang Feiyuan felt the happiness of a second-generation rich for the first time. Outside the hotel manager saw them off warmly. "Young master, next time you come again, you can give us a shout in advance so that we can make preparations." "Okay, got it," Jiang Feiyuan replied, and the group left. As they passed by the Juewei roast chicken restaurant, the delicious aroma could be smelled from afar. This Juewei roast chicken is a specialty snack of Nanchang, made with an exclusive secret recipe, and the business is booming. Otherwise, Zhang Liang wouldn't have been so hungry all day. It happened to be lunchtime, and business was booming, with a long queue extending to the street. Jiang Feiyuan looked at the black card in his hand. At this time, online payments were not yet popular. In small shops like this, you couldn't use a credit card. You had to pay in cash. He had previously promised to treat Zhang Liang to 20 barbecued chickens. In fact, he was quite hungry for them himself, and would take some back to his aunt's house for them to try. Dinner was also taken care of. Looking around, he remembered that there was a bank nearby. He needed to withdraw some cash. Soon, Zhang Feiyuan and the others arrived at the bank. It was close to noon, but there weren't many people, only a few scattered people conducting business. They went directly to an empty window, and the staff, who had been a bit drowsy, suddenly sat up. "Hello, sir. What kind of business would you like to conduct?" "Withdraw money," Zhang Feiyuan said simply, taking out his black card. The staff member was a young lady, and at the moment she was slightly surprised. She had never seen this kind of card before, and it was the first time she had seen it in this bank. However, when she saw the large series of numbers on the balance, she almost fainted. She couldn't help but take a closer look at Zhang Feiyuan. He was young, but he was actually a billionaire. 160 million. Zhang Feiyuan was actually curious about how much was actually on it. After asking and learning the exact number, he was stunned. This is called a little over 100 million? My goodness, this is only a secondary card belonging to his own mother, and from what she had said before, there must be more than one of these cards. With so much pocket money, Zhang Feiyuan didn't know what to spend it on for a while. The bank lady was already contacting the manager, as this was a super VIP customer who needed to be reported to the manager. Soon, the manager arrived in a hurry, and upon seeing Zhang Feiyuan, he was like a family member, shaking his hand excitedly. Zhang Feiyuan was really worried that he would hug him and kiss him. A quick glance at the black card sent another shock through his heart. This kind of black card is not something that just anyone with money can have. It is a limited edition card that can be used to withdraw cash from major banks around the world. So he became even more enthusiastic and began to invite Zhang Feiyuan. "Sir, please follow me to the VIP room to chat. I will take care of all your needs. There is coffee there, so we can take our time." Zhang Feiyuan was in no hurry. He took Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui with him to the VIP room, and the manager personally poured coffee for the several of them. The manager's attitude was downright servile. Zhang Liang and Gong Chenghui had learned a lot today and kept quiet as good followers. "I heard that you want to withdraw some money, sir. I can help you with that. Here is my business card. If you have any future needs, you can contact me through the contact information on it." The bank manager politely handed Zhang Feiyuan his business card with both hands. He glanced at it and then slipped it into his pocket. "You can use it in the future, so please accept it without any obligation. Let's withdraw 1 million yuan for now," Zhang Feiyuan said, naming a figure. A bank manager personally receiving him, it would not take much to buy a roast chicken. But if he were to withdraw just a few thousand or tens of thousand yuan, he would be ashamed to do so. The main thing was not to shame his own mother. The bank manager thought to himself upon hearing this, sure enough, wealthy people withdraw money in units of millions. He immediately made a phone call and continued to entertain Zhang Feiyuan. "Okay, sir, just a moment, someone will be there to take care of it right away. I don't know your name yet. My name is Zhang Feiyuan. Oh, Mr. Jiang, in the future, if you have any money withdrawal needs, just give me a call, and I will send someone to take care of it for you." The bank manager was beaming with a smile. Ordinary people naturally don't get this kind of treatment, but this person is different. With this card, he inherently possesses this privilege. This was the first time Zhang Feiyuan had heard about this, and he had never expected it to be so convenient. He nodded with pleasure. Waiting not long before a bank employee carrying a large suitcase came over. Zhang Liang immediately got up to take it, and with his tall frame, he was extremely suitable for carrying money. "Here is the 1 million cash Mr. Zhang needs. You don't need to worry about the rest." It was much less effort than Zhang Feiyuan had imagined. Hearing this, he stood up and said goodbye. "Then we'll take our leave, goodbye. Have a good trip, Mr. Jiang." The bank manager saw him off to the door. Zhang Liang held the cash in his hands and opened it to take a look, his eyes shining. This was the first time he had seen so much cash. His mouth was watering. "Good brother, what are we going to spend this money on?" Zhang Liang was not at all polite. He and Zhang Feiyuan were too close to have any sense of propriety. "Didn't you want to buy a roast chicken? Let's go buy a roast chicken first." "Hey, great." Zhang Liang was excited. I'll go back to the hospital first. The supervisor sent me a message, it seems like he needs me for something." Gong Chenghui suddenly spoke up, looking at Zhang Feiyuan. Zhang Liang answered for him directly, "Then you go back first, cousin, and I'll bring you back 2 barbecued chickens." "Thanks a lot then." Gong Chenghui left, and the two men once again went to the barbecue chicken restaurant. Not only had the long queue not decreased, it seemed to have gotten even longer. When will this line end? Zhang Liang sighed sadly. Zhang Feiyuan also had a headache. If they had to wait in line, they would probably have to wait until the afternoon. Just as he was considering whether to give up on the roast chicken, a few men in black appeared at the back of the line. Hey, I said, why are you pushing people? Zhang Feiyuan took a closer look and saw that they were 4 of the 8 bodyguards from before. They were pushing the people in line, and no one dared to stop them because they were so tall. He remembered Morong Nanran saying that there would be 4 bodyguards secretly protecting him. Now this service is really too attentive, knowing that he wants to eat roast chicken. This is directly pushing people away. He is just a rich young man, not a villain. Doing this kind of thing will make a lot of people hate him, and if it gets filmed and posted online, it will be a big deal. He is well aware of the dangers of online violence. Computers are now quite common, and there are also many mobile phones, and he doesn't want to go viral in this way. The headline would definitely be something like, "Unscrupulous young thugs, heartless and crazy, take their henchmen to push people in line at will." Is it a loss of morality or a distortion of humanity? Zhang Feiyuan was about to go up and criticize them when one of the bodyguards threw a box of money on the ground. Give up the line, everyone gets 1,000. Chapter 10, The Roast Chicken Shop Incident. Go! So they did bring cash. If I'd known, I would have gone to the bank to withdraw some money. But I didn't ask them. These guys are really good at hiding. I didn't notice them before. They had been secretly protecting Zhang Feiyuan, and had actually been nearby the whole time, just pretending to be passers-by. Zhang Feiyuan hadn't paid much attention, so naturally it was hard for him to notice. One of them even stayed within 10 meters of Zhang Feiyuan at all times, keeping a low profile. They didn't disturb Zhang Feiyuan, but they were also able to find out what Zhang Feiyuan needed as soon as possible. They heard that Zhang Feiyuan wanted to buy a roast chicken, and they remembered Morong Naran's instructions to satisfy Zhang Feiyuan's every need. At that moment, the people who had been pushed away by the bodyguards all brightened up when they saw the cash on the ground. If you could get 1,000 yuan without waiting in line, who would bother waiting in line? When can you eat a roast chicken? Is this the only time you get hungry? How many barbecue chickens can you buy with 1,000 yuan? As long as you're not stupid, everyone can do the math. Immediately, someone took the money and left, no longer occupying the queue. Soon, the people in front of the queue heard this, and the queue stopped. They ran directly to the back to get their money and stepped aside. A good thing like a pie in the sky fell from the sky, and they counted the cash in their hands. There were more than 100 people in the queue. In a moment, more than 100,000 yuan was spent. Afterwards, a bodyguard collected the remaining money, closed the box, and several people came to Zhang Feiyuan. They immediately stood on both sides, leaving an aisle, bent over, and made a gesture of invitation. One of the bodyguards said, "Young master, please." Everyone was watching. Almost all the people who had been in line before looked at Zhang Feiyuan at the same time. Who is this guy? Just standing in line and handing out money. I'm afraid he's not from a wealthy family. He must be some rich kid from a wealthy family experiencing life. Spending 100,000 yuan on roast chickens is really a waste of money. Is being rich that amazing? I hate people like that. Zhang Feiyuan was speechless. He hated you, but you took the money so quickly. The person who said he hated it was clutching the money in his hand quite tightly. At the moment, someone was already taking pictures of Zhang Feiyuan. I wonder what will be reported tomorrow. Stopping it was impossible, so he simply went to the front desk of the roast chicken restaurant and quickly said, "Hello, give me 30 roast chickens." He gave Zhang Liang 20 and took 10 back for himself. The aunt who adopted her was a good person, and her family had adopted quite a few orphans. There were a lot of people in the family, so the 10 roast chickens would probably be gone soon. The roast chicken restaurant owner watched in a daze. He had also seen the previous scene, and his heart was shocked by Zhang Feiyuan's identity. He reacted with surprise and immediately began to pack the chickens with the staff, as this was big business. 30 chickens at a time, that's thousands of chickens. Because business was so good, the roast chicken restaurant would prepare a lot of roasted chickens in advance every day. After counting, there were exactly 30 chickens. Just as they were about to hand them to Zhang Feiyuan, a voice suddenly sounded. "Wait, give me those 30 chickens first, I want to treat my brothers to a meal." A man with a fierce face, wearing a white shirt and looking very strong, walked over with a dozen or so minions at his side. He immediately made the people around him back off. Why is Lu Laosan here at this time? This is going to be good. The young master and his bodyguards don't look like they're easy to deal with either, but Lu Laosan is even more difficult to deal with. Lu Laosan was the local bully in the area. He usually led a group of minions who did nothing but collect protection money. At this time, the security situation was not very good, and it was not comparable to 10 years later in Zhang Feiyuan's previous life. Zhang Feiyuan knew this, and looked at the several bodyguards beside him. He was not sure in his heart, as there were more of them on the opposite side. Even if he and Zhang Liang were added, it would be the same. The bodyguard nodded slightly, indicating that Zhang Feiyuan didn't need to worry. Zhang Feiyuan suddenly realized and stopped worrying about this. The owner of the roast chicken shop looked bitter. This Lu Laosan usually paid half as much as the bill, but it would be more troublesome if he didn't pay. He was extremely conflicted. He looked at Zhang Feiyuan again and could only helplessly find an excuse. Brother Lu, this gentleman has already ordered first, I'm afraid you'll have to wait a little while. What? Make our big brother wait? Who do you think you are? It was you who wanted it? Get out of here quickly, don't make our brother Lu angry. One of the younger brothers jumped out first, with an arrogant attitude, pointing a finger at Zhang Feiyuan. Snap. Ah! The finger that the young man had extended was broken directly, and he rolled on the ground in pain. A bald bodyguard next to Zhang Feiyuan did it, his expression indifferent, as if he had done something trivial. Lu Laosan was also shocked, and he put away his lazy attitude and narrowed his eyes at Zhang Feiyuan. Good boy, you dare to move even my people. Don't think that just because you have a few stinking dollars and hired a few bodyguards that you can be arrogant. In this neighborhood, only I, Lu Laosan, call the shots. Shake people. As Lu Laosan finished speaking, one of his henchmen immediately put his finger in his mouth and let out a loud whistle. A moment later, there was a chorus of shouts, accompanied by the sound of running. Soon, a large crowd gathered again around Lu Laosan, numbering more than 30 people. They all looked like hooligans. Although they were not as big as the few bodyguards around Zhang Feiyuan, they had the advantage of being in large numbers. Zhang Feiyuan looked again, and the bald bodyguard who had just moved nodded again. Young master, wait a moment. After saying this, before Zhang Feiyuan could react, the few men had already rushed towards Lu Laosan's men. The movements were clean and swift. Almost one move for each opponent, no fancy moves, but they were extremely fast. 4 men fighting against more than 30, and they won? This scene excited Zhang Feiyuan. His own mother's bodyguards were really extraordinary. Unlike the fancy martial arts masters on TV, they were more like battle-hardened fighters who went straight for the jugular. Lu Laosan's men were lying on the ground, wailing in pain, and the bald bodyguard dragged Lu Laosan's legs and threw him in front of Zhang Feiyuan. Apologize to the young master. Lu Laosan was terrified. He immediately got up, knelt down, and kept kowtowing. Young master, spare my life. Grandpa, spare my life. I was wrong. The people around him felt great. Who didn't hate Lu Laosan, who lived around the area on weekdays? He bullied ordinary people everywhere and was nothing but a scumbag. Many people even applauded. Some even took pictures of Zhang Feiyuan. He had done a good deed? Zhang Feiyuan didn't think he could catch up with this. He gave Zhang Liang a wink and said, Zhang Liang, take the roast chicken and retreat. Okay. The two of them took the roast chicken and left quickly. He didn't want to become famous. Once you become famous, everyone will pay attention to whatever you do, and you won't be able to do many things. Being a public figure, you can be held accountable for everything you say for the rest of your life. The 4 bodyguards followed in silence, but kept a certain distance from Zhang Feiyuan. Zhang Feiyuan lived not far from Zhang Liang's house, and the two of them parted ways after arriving. Before leaving, Zhang Liang said, I'll come find you again tomorrow, and then happily went home with 20 roast chickens. Zhang Feiyuan also returned to his own home, where his family was sitting neatly together, all 3 sisters present, and his aunt cooking in the kitchen. Chapter 11, Auntie's Family. There were also a few younger brothers and sisters, who were gathered together playing poker. They were all orphans adopted by their auntie. The 3 sisters had all grown up and got jobs, helping their auntie share a lot of the burden. The money for his university education was provided by the 3 sisters borrowing money from others. Because they were orphans, they all took their auntie's surname. The eldest sister, Zhang Yulan, worked as an accountant in a company and wore glasses, looking refined and intelligent. She likes to talk about Zhang Feiyuan all the time, always saying that he is not doing the right thing and will be looked down on if he doesn't achieve anything in the future. She is right, actually. In his previous life, Zhang Feiyuan did exactly what his eldest sister said. If you don't listen to the advice of the elderly, you will suffer. Although his eldest sister is not an elderly person, she has accumulated a lot of experience. Although this life is different, Zhang Feiyuan still feels extremely close to his eldest sister. If he had listened a little more at the time, he wouldn't have been so miserable later. Second sister Zhang Xiaomei is a primary school teacher. She has a playful appearance and big eyes that always give people the impression of a quirky character. If she didn't say anything, no one would guess that she was a primary school teacher. In their everyday lives, Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Xiaomei got along well and often played around together. When they were young, they often slept together. Back then, she couldn't fight back, but now Zhang Feiyuan really wants to go up and give her a red-braced bottom. Third sister Zhang Yueling, a somewhat melancholy woman, doesn't say much during the week and just likes to read quietly by herself. It's not serious books, just some comic novels and whatnot, which tell the love stories of men and women dying for each other, and sometimes make her cry. She'll even get caught up in the story and yell, "Brother, come quickly." She has just graduated from university recently and is looking for a job. The rest of her younger siblings are still young, and apart from helping their aunt out with some chores, they just play around innocently. They do what children should do at their age. Today is Sunday, and the whole family is together. Everyone is used to seeing Zhang Feiyuan come back. They don't know that the Zhang Feiyuan in front of them is a man who has been reborn and possesses the memories of his previous life. And his identity is very different. Looking at the suitcase Zhang Feiyuan was carrying, his eldest sister's curious voice sounded out, "Feiyuan, what's that you're carrying? It looks quite heavy. How did you do in your exams?" Zhang Feiyuan was carrying 1,000,000 yuan that he had just withdrawn. Now that he had money, he naturally could not forget these former relatives. "I'll show you this after dinner." Zhang Feiyuan wanted to give them a shock. If they saw it at this time, they would probably not be able to finish eating, which would be a letdown for his aunt's efforts. "As for my grades, you can see for yourself, eldest sister." Although it had been a lifetime ago, the score still made him feel a little ashamed. He simply handed his report card directly to his eldest sister, Zhang Yulan. What a delicious smell. What's that in your hand?" While Zhang Yulan was looking at his report card, second sister Zhang Xiaomei noticed the large bag that Zhang Feiyuan was carrying in the other hand. She could smell the fragrance from it from afar. She is a typical foodie and has an exceptionally keen sense of smell for food. She simply pounced on it, snatched the bag from Zhang Feiyuan's hands, and opened it to take a look. Several younger siblings put down their poker hands, and third sister Zhang Yueling also gathered around curiously. "It's the roast chicken from that roast chicken restaurant. Where did you snatch it from?" Second sister Zhang Xiaomei exclaimed, and as a recent graduate, she didn't think it was him who bought it. As an elementary school teacher, her salary is just a little over 1,000 yuan a month. When she passed by the roast chicken shop on her way home, she would just look at it, and she didn't even buy it. Her younger siblings also cheered. They didn't care if it was bought or stolen, and they all shared one roast chicken. Zhang Feiyuan looked at it and smiled, and didn't say much. "What do you mean stolen? I bought it." "Don't be ridiculous." Zhang Feiyuan still retorted, but his second sister Zhang Xiaomei was full of disbelief. She suspected that Zhang Feiyuan had been secretly working to earn money. Could it be that this kid had grown up and become sensible? 251. "Zhang Feiyuan, you idiot, how did you get such a score?" Her eldest sister's voice had changed, as had her address, and her face was full of displeasure. She was simply numb. Just writing randomly would not result in such a low score. What could one do with such a score in the future? Her eldest sister was furious, and was more worried about Zhang Feiyuan's future. Cough. "I'll explain later." Zhang Feiyuan ran directly to the kitchen, a little afraid of his eldest sister, and came to his aunt's side. His aunt's name was Zhang Hui, in her 40s, and looked like a woman in her 30s. She had naturally good skin, so she looked young. She had adopted Zhang Feiyuan and his family, and it was very hard for her to work so hard every day. In Zhang Feiyuan's memory from his previous life, his aunt passed away early due to overwork not long after he started university. Which was also his regret in his previous life. Although she was nominally his aunt, Zhang Feiyuan and his siblings had always treated her like a real mother. They had also called her mom, but Jiang Hui had just said, "You all have your own biological parents, so when you find them in the future, just call me Auntie." So the name was decided from then on. "Auntie, I'm home." Hugging her aunt from behind as she chopped vegetables, Jiang Hui's body trembled. When she heard it was Zhang Feiyuan's voice, a smile appeared on her face. But soon her face fell. The room was not big, and the kitchen was only separated by a curtain. She had heard the conversation clearly. Zhang Feiyuan had only scored 251 points. This low score should mean that he doesn't get any dinner. Don't think that saying a few nice things will make this go away. You got such a low score, you're not getting any dinner tonight. Jiang Hui thought that Zhang Feiyuan had suddenly become so affectionate because he was afraid of being scolded. Zhang Feiyuan wasn't thinking about that, he just hadn't seen Jiang Hui for a long time. "It's okay, I already ate. I bought these for you, I'll eat them next time," Zhang Feiyuan said with a smile. Ha! If anyone knew Zhang Feiyuan best, it was Jiang Hui, who had watched him grow up since childhood. She could sense the change, even if no one else could. It was as if Zhang Feiyuan had become a different person, with a profound temperament and a sense of stability. It was unlike the words of the brash young man she had known before. "What's wrong with you? Has something happened?" Jiang Hui naturally didn't think in terms of reincarnation, but just wondered if Zhang Feiyuan had been subjected to some kind of shock. Otherwise, why would he suddenly change like this? Something did happen. I'll explain properly after you've finished eating. Come, Auntie, let me help you cook. Naturally, he had to tell Jiang Hui and the others about finding his real mother, and it wasn't something that could be explained clearly in a few words. Wow, so much money. One of the sisters was curious about Zhang Feiyuan's suitcase and played with it like a toy. She was shocked when she opened it. Chapter 12. Zhang Liang's loud voice. The crimson brushes scattered on the floor. This younger sister had just accidentally turned the entire box over, and now it was all over the floor. But no one cared about this at the moment, they were all shocked by the sight of the floor full of bills. Zhang Feiyuan carried the box back, so who could guess how he got all this? Emotions of confusion, doubt, and surprise filled their hearts. Could it be props? Has my brother recently gone to film with someone? Thought the younger sister naively. The eldest sister Jiang Yulan is an accountant. She walked over to the ground, picked up a piece and looked at it, and already knew that the money on the ground was all real. Did he go on a robbery? The eldest sister Jiang Yulan's heart was even more thunderstruck. She is very sensitive to numbers, and just by looking at it, she knew that the cash on the ground was probably close to 1 million. With such a huge amount of money in the hands of a recent graduate, this makes people suspicious. She was worried that Zhang Feiyuan had gone astray and was up to no good with someone. Her second sister was also suspicious. Although the third sister was shocked, she was not like the others. She was still immersed in her own world, hoping that what fell out of the box was a Prince Charming. She wanted to have an exciting love story with him. Auntie Jiang Hui was also startled by the sound, and her movements of cutting vegetables stopped. Turning around, she saw the scene and her face went blank. The cash scattered on the ground looked extremely shocking to her. She immediately looked at Zhang Feiyuan. "Feiyuan, did you bring this back? Hurry up and come over here and tell me what's going on." Jiang Hui had the same thoughts as her eldest sister, and she knew that money was hard to earn and shit was hard to eat. With so much cash for no reason, she was even more worried that it was a disaster. She dragged Zhang Feiyuan over to the cash, and everyone's gaze was fixed on him, waiting for an explanation. Zhang Feiyuan was silent. He had originally thought about waiting until dinner to start from the beginning. This sudden turn of events meant that he had to explain earlier than expected, and he couldn't help but squeeze the little face of his sister, who had just revealed his cash. His angry sister puffed up her mouth and bit his palm. It didn't hurt, so Zhang Feiyuan slowly began to explain. "Since it's come to this, I'll explain properly. I found my real mother today." Zhang Feiyuan explained at length, from the college entrance examination results to entering the hospital, recounting every detail. Zhang Feiyuan also did not hide the fact that his biological mother was a wealthy woman who had given him 100 million yuan. Sure enough. Hearing this shocking news, Jiang Hui and the others were shocked. This kind of thing that only existed in TV dramas had actually happened to Zhang Feiyuan. The term rich second generation was extremely foreign to them. After a long silence, Jiang Hui finally reacted. "So that's it, no wonder it's like this, that's great." Jiang Hui was so happy that she burst into tears. She felt that her health had been deteriorating recently. The only thing she worried about was these children. After she was gone, how would these children survive? Where were their biological parents? Now that Jiang Feiyuan had become a second-generation rich man, he could help the remaining children who were not yet independent. This would be easy for him. Jiang Feiyuan did consider this. At the same time, Jiang Hui was also happy for Jiang Feiyuan to be able to find his biological mother. This kind of thing was even more bizarre than winning the lottery. It was really a stroke of luck. Everyone else was also happy for Jiang Feiyuan, and at the same time, they felt a sense of pride, as if the family had suddenly gained a rich second child. Some of the younger siblings immediately became more active. "Brother, I saw a doll in the supermarket the other day. I wanted to buy it, but I didn't have any money." "Brother, I want a transformer." "Brother." "Okay, buy them all." Jiang Feiyuan waved his hand and gave each of his younger siblings a big red envelope. The three sisters looked on with smiles, as they were old enough to know that they naturally would not ask for these things. Moreover, they would not be so inconsiderate as to ask for this and that, as there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. After handing out the red envelopes, Jiang Feiyuan looked at Jiang Hui again. "Auntie, my real mother said that she will come and see you after she gets better. She said she is very grateful to you." Jiang Feiyuan had talked a lot with Morong Shu in the hospital, and naturally informed her of the fact that he had been adopted by Jiang Hui. Morong Shu was extremely grateful, but due to her health, she was unable to be discharged from the hospital for the time being. "Thank you for what? As long as she is healthy, that's all that matters." "Enough said, Auntie is happy, I'll continue cooking for you." Afterwards, Jiang Feiyuan also went over to help, and when she saw Jiang Feiyuan skillfully cooking and chopping vegetables, Jiang Hui was full of confusion. She didn't know when Jiang Feiyuan had learned to cook. In her previous life, Jiang Feiyuan had been on her own for a long time and had long since mastered the skill of cooking. After all, buying food outside costs a lot of money. After the family had a happy meal together, Jiang Feiyuan gave Jiang Hui most of the cash, but it shocked her. She only kept 200,000 yuan for herself and put it in her room, because there were always places where cash was needed during the day. It was soon evening. The house was not small, but it could not accommodate the large family. It was very crowded, with many small rooms separated from each other to make the most of the space. Jiang Feiyuan was in his own cubicle, feeling in his pockets, and only then did he realize that he didn't have a mobile phone at this time. He couldn't help but laugh, having forgotten about it. Crack! There was a knock on the door, and even though he was inside the room, Jiang Feiyuan could hear it. "Jiang Dashui, are you there? I know you're not asleep, so open the door quickly." Zhang Liang's loud voice was afraid that no one would hear it. Jiang Feiyuan was really afraid that the neighbors around him would get up and give him a good scolding. Fortunately, it was only 8 p.m., and most people had not yet gone to bed. If it had been in the middle of the night, Jiang Feiyuan himself would have wanted to go up and hammer on the door. As soon as Jiang Feiyuan had gone out, the door had already been opened by Jiang Hui. Knowing that Zhang Liang was Jiang Feiyuan's best friend, she also wore a smile on her face. "It's Zhang Liang, Feiyuan is home, but what are you looking for him for at this late hour? Is there something wrong?" "Hey, there is actually something wrong, so I won't hide it from you. It's like this, it's been a while since we all finished our exams, and someone organized a class reunion, and I've been notified, and I'm supposed to bring Jiang Dashui. This is a chance to get together." Jiang Feiyuan, who had just come out, happened to hear this. He just remembered that not long after graduation in the last life, there was such a class reunion. That time, he also didn't go. After all, a score of 251 was despised. In order not to embarrass himself, he resolutely stayed at home and slept. But things are different now. After a lifetime of trials and tribulations, he has long since become refined. Besides, now it's only him who despises others, right? "Are you going, Xiao Yuan?" Jiang Hui looked at Jiang Feiyuan and asked. He is already an adult, and Jiang Feiyuan naturally won't stop him if he wants to go. "Well, I'll go take a look, and I'll be back later." Chapter 13: The Smell of Flattery. "Well, I'll leave the door open for you, and remember to be safe on the way." Jiang Hui was uneasy and gave a reminder, watching Jiang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang leave. Ben's KTV. A place with very luxurious decorations that has been open for many years. In the last life, Jiang Feiyuan was gone, but this KTV is still alive. The cost of this one event was also not small. After the two arrived here, Jiang Feiyuan asked the question on his mind. "By the way, Zhang Liang, I still haven't asked, who organized it?" From what Zhang Liang had said before, it was organized by a classmate, and he still hadn't asked. Gu Chenggong, the guy in our class who usually seems pretty honest. I heard that like you, he is also a second-generation rich kid. He usually seems very low-key, but I didn't realize that he is also a deep person. You guys should have a lot in common. Zhang Liang spoke to himself, his eyes betraying surprise, and he teased Zhang Feiyuan a little. Zhang Feiyuan was surprised, and then suddenly realized. In his previous life, he had also heard of this Gu Chenggong. At school, he was unassuming and looked like an honest student. Who would have thought he was a rich second generation? Later, I heard that he was playing with his eyes, and he went out with a few internet celebrities every day to check in. Then one day, he finally squandered his family fortune and became a beggar. Zhang Feiyuan was surprised that the person who organized this party was actually him. It was both unexpected and reasonable. Obviously, this was a showdown. The two went in and soon arrived in box 303. The song was already playing in the room. It was a tragic song that no one could sing. They didn't rush in, but waited outside until the sound died down. Zhang Liang commented, "It sounded like Gu Chenggong's voice, and what he was singing was really unpleasant. It was as if my ears had been torn out." Zhang Feiyuan felt the same way, but he didn't say much. The two of them walked in together, and they heard a flurry of compliments. This song should only be heard in heaven, how often can you hear it on earth? Brother Chenggong's singing is really good, he can outshine a bunch of professional singers and celebrities. After hearing Brother Chenggong sing, I don't dare to sing anymore. The two people who had just entered were speechless at the flattery. This was a really fake compliment. However, Gu Chenggong was very pleased with it and wore a look of smug satisfaction on his face. Before, at school, he had been unknown, and his stepfather had not given him any money, so he could not even pretend to be cool. Finally, he graduated, his stepfather died, and his loving mother took power, giving him a lot of pocket money, and finally giving him the opportunity to show off in front of his classmates. In the future, the family's wealth will all be his. Ha, so. Today, we're all gathered together, mainly to be happy. Gu Chenggong accepted these insincere praises without any hesitation. They didn't go to any key high school, and his stepfather was previously a shareholder of a university. After his stepfather died, his real mother became a shareholder. He knew the purpose of these people flattering him. It was nothing more than because they didn't do so well in the exams, and they wanted to use his connections to enter the university. Maybe they could even save a lot of tuition fees. He didn't care, it was just a matter of words anyway, and at the moment he was enjoying the compliments from these people to the fullest. Zhang Liang, Zhang Feiyuan, why did you guys come so slowly? Brother Chenggong organized this, and you're really not giving him face, are you? Wang Hu, the most eloquent person in the class during the week. At the moment, his face was full of reproach, as if you were really not giving Brother Chenggong face. Zhang Feiyuan was speechless. In his previous life, this guy really did do well for himself, following the philosophy that if you flatter people well, you can go anywhere in the world without fear. But when he flatters people himself, he makes two people his sidekicks. Zhang Feiyuan immediately covered his nose. There seems to be a stench in the air. Zhang Liang, do you smell it? Zhang Liang, I smell it, a very strong smell of flattery. Puff. Some students couldn't help laughing out loud. There were more than 10 classmates who came, and many of them didn't like flattery, so they felt very satisfied at the moment. It was all because of this Wang Hu who took the lead. Everyone was still quite innocent after graduating, but they were corrupted by this guy. If they didn't flatter him, they always felt like they were at a disadvantage. The two of them sang in unison, leaving Wang Hu with a pale face. He stared at the two of them with a hostile gaze. A classmate standing nearby stepped in to smooth things over. It's great that you came, so sit down. Do you want to sing a couple of songs too? Zhang Dashui, you've always sung really well, don't you want to take this opportunity to sing a song? Zhang Feiyuan was the undisputed heartthrob of the class, handsome and a great singer. Yes, Zhang Dashui, sing a song. The crowd clamored. Unable to refuse such a gracious invitation, Zhang Feiyuan sang a song. As the song slowly began, the voices of those around him also quieted. Will you open tomorrow the diary you wrote yesterday? Will you still remember tomorrow the one who used to cry the most? Once he finished, it was like a story being told. Everyone around him was mesmerized. Zhang Feiyuan's voice was so good that even if it slightly went out of tune, it still made people immersed in it. Two female classmates already had the adoring looks of fans in their eyes. But Zhang Feiyuan knew that this was just after graduating from high school. When they graduate from university and even start working, these two women will despise him the most. The admiration now is all the hatred later. Zhang Feiyuan did not become arrogant, and after singing, he simply threw the microphone on the table. Clap, clap, clap. A round of applause sounded, except Gu Chenggong's face did not look too good. He had originally organized this round, but now it seemed that Zhang Feiyuan had stolen the limelight. He knew all about Zhang Feiyuan, a poor kid who was just a bit good-looking. That made him very unhappy. He didn't show it, however, and put on a fake smile. Ha! Classmate John's singing was really amazing. Since we've gathered here together, let's not sing. Let's sit down and have a good chat, eat some fruit and snacks, and have a couple of drinks. I'll make the arrangements. Let's just get to know each other better. Gu Chenggong said, and quickly pressed the room button to summon the waiter to make arrangements. Before long, various beers and fruit snacks were served. The private room was already incredibly large, and the table was so long that it almost took up half the room. But it was also filled with food and drinks. Gu Chenggong's eyes revealed an imperceptible trace of smugness. He then said with a pretentious air, "This must be the first time you've been here, right? I come here a lot, so don't be shy. We can order more after we've eaten and drunk. Don't worry." Wang Hu gave timely support from the side. Pointing to the bunch of beers on the table, his face revealed an exaggerated expression of awe. "Brother Chenggong, this beer is imported from abroad, right? I think I've seen it somewhere before. It costs hundreds of dollars for a bunch outside. As everyone knows, the price of drinks in karaoke bars will double. And since it's another Bent's karaoke bar, I'm afraid the prices are ridiculously high, and there are so many of them here." Chapter 14. The karaoke bar owner instantly made the surrounding students exclaim in awe. Most people come from average families, and even those from better-off families have never heard of such expensive beer before. Gu Chenggong instantly attracted everyone's attention. Zhang Feiyuan found it all very amusing. He thought to himself, "Enjoy your life, loser. This spoilt brat comes from an average family, and although he can be considered a rich man, he is at most a little rich second generation. I already know that after he's finished living it up, he'll become a beggar." Zhang Feiyuan felt that he could throw 2 steamed buns at him if he saw him again in the future. Gu Chenggong pretended to be cool and waved his hand. "Hey, we're all classmates, what's the point of talking about this? As long as everyone is happy." His eyes were full of pride, and he secretly looked at Zhang Feiyuan's position, only to discover that no one else had even looked at him. Gu Chenggong was suspicious. Was Zhang Feiyuan, a poor kid, really that good at pretending to be cool? He had no idea that Zhang Feiyuan had the knowledge of a previous life, plus the identity of a rich kid that far surpassed his. It would be strange if there was a reaction. "Brother Chenggong, I didn't do very well on this exam. I heard that your family is a shareholder of the university, and the tuition there is quite high. Our family is afraid we can't afford it. Do you think you can help?" one of the classmates asked, embarrassed. 2 other people also gave him the same look. Upon hearing this, Gu Chenggong waved his hand nonchalantly. It's all trivial. My mother is a shareholder now, and we're all classmates. The tuition is free for you, it's a piece of cake." "Great. Thank you, Brother Chenggong." Several classmates were excited. "Come on, Brother Chenggong, I'll toast you." "I'll drink first as a sign of respect." The student immediately gulped it down. The other students pretended to do the same. Even those who didn't like to flatter followed suit and lifted their beers. After all, they would enter society sooner or later and didn't want to offend Gu Chenggong. Only Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang did not raise their glasses. Zhang Liang did not move because he saw Zhang Feiyuan not moving. Unlike the others, Zhang Feiyuan would not indulge him. Gu Chenggong naturally noticed this as well, and it greatly upset him. This guy really doesn't give him any face. But he can't let it show. After all, he is now a second-generation rich guy, and it's really beneath him to argue with a poor kid like Zhang Feiyuan. But he is extremely unhappy in his heart. Wang Hu has sharp eyes and immediately noticed this scene, knowing that it was his time to show off. He immediately started trouble. "Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang, what do you mean? At a time like this, you're not even going to toast Brother Chenggong? Isn't that too disrespectful? I remember that you two have never been good at studying, right? Maybe Brother Chenggong will be happy and help you out." Gu Chenggong looked at Wang Hu with appreciation. Wang, who was much more mature than the others. He knew the unspoken rules of society. Bang! The door to the karaoke bar suddenly opened, and a middle-aged fat man in a suit barged in, looking agitated. He came up to Zhang Feiyuan and bowed vigorously. Young Master Zhang's presence truly honors this humble abode. Lu Shengmin was the owner of the karaoke bar, and now Zhang Feiyuan's picture had spread throughout the entire Nan City rich and powerful circles. Everyone knew that the legendary tycoon had found his biological son. It is very difficult to meet the big boss in person during the week, and Zhang Feiyuan has undoubtedly been targeted by these rich people. As long as he can get a little bit involved with this person, there will be countless benefits in the future. If he can make a friend, he will be able to burn incense at his ancestors' graves. Zhang Feiyuan was sure that he definitely did not know this person, and he was a little confused for a while. He had just recognized his relatives today, so who was this person? He also had excellent information. Not to mention Zhang Feiyuan, the same goes for everyone else. Lu Shengmin was wearing a suit, and anyone with a sharp eye could tell that it was a designer brand. His slicked back hair was neatly combed, and he exuded an air of authority. Anyone who wasn't blind could tell that this person was definitely not ordinary. Such a person, who exuded an air of authority with every move, was actually so humble when he met Zhang Feiyuan. The level of politeness was like that of a son meeting his father, and it was hard to understand. It's him! Gu Chenggong and Wang, who were both taken aback. Gu Chenggong often came here, so naturally he knew that this Lu Shengmin was the owner of this Ben's KTV. Wang, who had just graduated, but his family also ran a small business. He had some contact with the rich circles of Nanchang, and was extremely quick-witted, so naturally he also knew this Lu Shengmin. Starting from scratch, he grew bigger and stronger step by step, and opened 5 KTVs in Nanchang, with an amazing daily turnover. The main focus was a mid to high-end market. Although he is not the richest tycoon in Nanchang, he is extremely famous. But he actually called the man in front of him young master, the poor kid they had always thought he was? Zhang Feiyuan's identity has undoubtedly become a bit confusing, and it may not be at all what they imagined. Seeing Zhang Feiyuan's puzzled expression, Lu Shengmin immediately smiled and continued to explain, "We already know young Master Zhang's identity, and I can say that I admire him greatly. I hope young Master Zhang will not blame me for coming uninvited." Zhang Feiyuan knew full well that this was definitely a face-saving move on the part of his biological mother. The surprise in his heart had turned to numbness. Ever since he had acknowledged this biological mother, it seemed that whenever he met a rich person, they would act in the same way. He still had to adapt to his identity as a super-rich second generation as soon as possible. He could tell that he was not an ordinary second-generation rich person. Rather, he was a second-generation rich person among second-generation rich people. He waved his hand lightly and smiled, "It's fine, I just came to attend a class reunion, I won't disturb you. If you're fine, just go." He didn't know Lu Shengmin well, and although he knew his identity, Zhang Feiyuan really didn't intend to chat with him. But Lu Shengmin was not willing to give up. It was hard for him to get Zhang Feiyuan to come to his place, and if he didn't treat him well, he would smack himself twice. He immediately spoke up, "Young Master Jiang, you are our most distinguished guest. How can this small private room do justice to your status? Why don't you all follow me to a different room? It's much better than this one, and I guarantee you'll have a good time." Fearing that Zhang Feiyuan would not agree, Lu Shengmin looked directly at his classmates. At the moment, his classmates were still in shock and had already learned of Lu Shengmin's identity from the mouths of others. This was a big shot for them. Now Zhang Feiyuan's identity was also beyond doubt, and it must be beyond their imagination. Someone immediately suggested, "The boss is so polite, why don't we just do what he says?" Even the way they were addressed had changed. They were not stupid, and as far as they knew, this was already the most luxurious private room in the restaurant. Just renting it for one night would cost tens of thousands of yuan. They were curious to see a better room than this. Zhang Liang was also curious and whispered, "Why don't we go take a look? I'm really curious. What does a better room look like?" So many people agreed, and Zhang Feiyuan didn't refuse, so he nodded lightly. Lu Shengmin was so happy that he almost jumped up, and immediately handed Zhang Feiyuan a business card. "Young Master Jiang, please accept this card, I will immediately change the room for everyone." Chapter 15 Zhang Liang's sister. Zhang Feiyuan took the business card. After taking a look, he saw Lu Shengmin's name and contact information on it. He casually put it in his pocket, and Lu Shengmin immediately smiled when he saw it. Immediately, he took Zhang Feiyuan and the others to change rooms together. gorgeous and splendid. This was the first impression of everyone. Lu Shengmin led everyone to a room on the third floor, the door of which looked no different from the doors of other rooms. But when they went in, many people's eyes almost blinded. The interior was extremely luxurious, as if they had come to a palace. There were wine racks, karaoke equipment, and several large sofas arranged at random but just right. There were also two beautiful waitresses bowing and waiting. This scene was the first time Jiang Feiyuan had seen it, let alone anyone else. It didn't look like a karaoke bar, it looked more like a golden nest. Lu Shengmin was quite pleased with the way everyone behaved, and this room was used exclusively to entertain important guests. Usually, not just anyone could just walk in. If it wasn't for Jiang Feiyuan's arrival, he would not have opened it. At the moment, he quickly invited everyone to enter. Young Master Jiang, please, everyone, please. He took the lead and watched Jiang Feiyuan make a gesture of invitation, and the others followed suit. Gu Chenggong and Wang Hu also followed, and when they saw the scene in front of them, they couldn't help but swallow. Even Gu Chenggong, a rich second generation, had never been qualified to come here. He was thunderstruck at this moment, wondering what exactly Jiang Feiyuan's identity was. He was able to make Lu Shengmin act like that. After entering and taking a seat, Lu Shengmin continued, "Young Master Jiang and all the students have fun, I won't disturb you. If you need anything, you can ask the waiter to do it." After saying that, Lu Shengmin took his leave. After leaving the room, Lu Shengmin looked at the waiter who followed him and said, "Well done, I'll give you your bonus later." After learning about the situation of the son of the big boss, Lu Shengmin had already notified the position. As long as he saw Jiang Feiyuan come here, he would immediately report it for the first time, and he could receive a bonus of 10,000 yuan. Everyone in the KTV was staring. This waiter was the one that Gu Chenggong had called in earlier, and at the moment he was ecstatic. He didn't expect his luck to be so good. "Thank you, boss," and quickly ran off to collect his prize. Inside the room, the door had been closed to avoid disturbing Jiang Feiyuan. At this time, Jiang Feiyuan's classmates looked at him differently again. This was definitely a second-generation rich guy who was even more awesome than Gu Chenggong, but he usually kept a low profile. At the same time, they secretly resented the fact that there were two hidden second-generation rich guys in one class. "Ha ha. I've long since seen that Brother Jiang is extraordinary, no wonder so many girls like you really have good taste." One of the classmates, who was quick-witted, had already started flattering Jiang. He had flattered Gu Chenggong a lot before. Jiang Feiyuan didn't expose him, they were classmates after all, and he didn't bother to say anything about it. "Brother Jiang, you're really handsome, when you become successful in the future, don't forget us." The two female classmates embraced Jiang Feiyuan's arm on the left and right. Their behavior was intimate, but it attracted the envy of many others. But there was nothing to envy. Before, Jiang Feiyuan was just a bit more handsome, and everyone thought he was poor, and they would secretly feel a little unhappy. But now he is a second-generation rich man, and they don't even have such thoughts. The waiter was pouring red wine in front of everyone. Gu Chenggong looked unhappy, and he didn't say a word the whole time. He felt a bit humiliated today. Seeing this, he couldn't help but complain, "What kind of wine is this? I don't know if it's good or not, I don't really like red wine." "Hello sir, this is Lafite Rothschild 1982. The waiter politely responded. Sigh. Everyone let out a gasp. Although they hadn't drunk it before, they had heard a lot about it. When they saw this kind of wine for the first time, they all looked at their glasses, afraid of spilling a drop. Gu Chenggong's face looked even more unpleasant, and he couldn't help but lift up his glass and take a sip. He was just a little rich second generation, and normally he couldn't just drink this kind of wine. After trying it once, it was indeed the same as the last time when he drank it again. It was really true. "Come on, Liang, I'll toast you." A classmate proposed a toast to Zhang Liang. Zhang Liang was extremely pleased and felt honored. Everyone knew that he and Jiang Feiyuan had the best relationship, and Jiang Feiyuan was surrounded by a few female classmates, so someone turned their attention to him. At this moment, he looked at Wang Hu with disdain and said, "Didn't you kids say that your success brother would help Jiang Dasha and me? How are you going to help us?" Wang Hu's face changed, and he immediately smiled apologetically. I was just talking nonsense before. What strength does Brother Jiang have? He doesn't need anyone's help." Wang Hu really wanted to slap himself a few big slaps. He had been so mean before, and now he had kicked against the iron. He had wanted to show off in front of Gu Chenggong, but now it seemed that he had missed out on an even greater resource. Regret cannot express his feelings. Afterwards, the waiters were incredibly attentive. The snacks and refreshments were simply incomparable to the private room that Gu Chenggong had booked earlier. There was even bird's nest to rinse the mouth after drinking too much. This treatment was simply like an emperor. Gu Chenggong really couldn't stand it anymore and, after taking a few sips, saw that everyone was surrounding Jiang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang, so he simply left. It was very late before Jiang Feiyuan left with Zhang Liang. Thanks to Jiang Feiyuan, Zhang Liang felt like the center of attention for the first time. He had drunk quite a bit and was drunk and rambling. General Jiang, to have a brother like you in my life is really worth it. Jiang Feiyuan didn't really like to drink too much, and in his previous life, he was often drunk and had diarrhea due to socializing. He had just casually drunk a few sips before, and even the 1982 Lafite Rothschild could not shake him. With a helpless shake of his head, Jiang Feiyuan personally walked Zhang Liang home. It was already past midnight, but the lights were still on in Zhang Liang's house. The house was not big, and as soon as you arrived at the door, you could see the scene inside. A woman wearing cotton pajamas was sitting there. Zhang Liang's sister. Zhang Liang's mother died young, and his father and sister raised him, which is why he has worked so hard since then, hoping to give them a happy life. Zhang Liang had told him this more than once. His father worked night shifts every day. Zhang Suya's face looked a little haggard. Zhang Suya knew that Zhang Liang went to a class reunion and hasn't returned for so long, which still makes her very worried. Cough, cough. Zhang Suya couldn't help but cough violently. Jiang Feiyuan, who had just dragged Zhang Liang in, happened to see this scene. He was startled. Hurry up and help the drunken Zhang Liang sit on the chair. Looking over, he asked with concern, Sister Suya, are you okay? It's so late and you're still not sleeping. Chapter 16 Zhang Yulan's Wish. You're back. Zhang Suya's face showed happiness. Seeing Zhang Liang come back safely, she felt a lot more relieved. Jiang Feiyuan and Zhang Liang had such a good relationship, so Zhang Suya naturally knew. Upon hearing this, she waved her hand and said, I'm fine, I just have some lung disease. It happens a lot, I'm a bit irritable, but I'll just drink more boiled water later. Jiang Feiyuan knew that Zhang Suya was seriously ill, with cancer, in the terminal stages of lung cancer. She wouldn't live long. In the last life, Zhang Liang had cried for a long time, hugging him sadly. Jiang Feiyuan couldn't do anything about it. Even in the current hospital, it was difficult to cure Zhang Suya's illness. He didn't know how to heal either. People have joys and sorrows, and even if they are reborn in this life, there are things that they cannot change. He could only try his best to help. He gently took out 2 stacks of money from his pocket and placed them on the table in front of Zhang Suya. Suya, since you don't want to talk about it, I won't ask anymore. Take this money and buy some supplements and get plenty of rest. I'm on such good terms with Zhang Liang, you can't refuse, it's not a big deal. Zhang Suya was taken aback. He had naturally heard from Zhang Liang about Jiang Feiyuan's situation, and was also happy that Jiang Feiyuan had found his biological mother. Hearing this, and thinking that Zhang Liang was about to go to university soon, and really needed the money recently, he didn't refuse. But her eyes were full of gratitude when she looked at Jiang Feiyuan. There was nothing she could do to repay him. She quickly pulled Jiang Feiyuan down to sit. Feiyuan, thank you. Sit down, I'll get you some water. I'll consider this a loan. I'll pay you back when I have the money. Zhang Suya quickly got up and poured Jiang Feiyuan a glass of water. Jiang Feiyuan didn't mind, as he had been here many times before and was used to it. He drank the water and chatted with Zhang Suya in a casual manner, and only left after helping to carry Zhang Liang into the house. As for Zhang Suya's request to pay back the money, Jiang Feiyuan didn't care either. Early the next morning, Jiang Feiyuan woke up from bed and was startled. At some point, his eldest sister Zhang Yulan stood in front of his bed. Dressed in pajamas, she was still wearing a pair of myopic glasses, her hair a little messy, looking like she had just woken up. Seeing that Jiang Feiyuan had woken up, she immediately smiled, You brat, you've finally woken up. I've been watching you for a while. Tell me, what time did you get back yesterday? It's already high noon, and you're just waking up now. Jiang Feiyuan sat up and rolled his eyes silently. That's no reason to stand in front of my bed, is it? If I didn't have a good mental quality, I would have been scared to death by you. Tell me, is there something wrong? Nothing comes to the temple without a reason. Jiang Feiyuan, as the eldest sister who knows herself well, definitely has something to ask him. You've noticed it. It's true that I have something to ask you for help, and you're the one who said it yourself. Zhang Feiyuan remembered that during the meal before, Zhang Feiyuan had said to his three sisters in a domineering manner that his younger brother was now rich and could come to him for anything he wished for in the future. Obviously, this was to come to him to fulfill his wish. Zhang Feiyuan had no intention of breaking his promise. So, big sister, tell me, what is it that you want to achieve? Just say it, and if I can do it, I will definitely do it for you. Big sister Zhang Yulan was beaming with joy when she heard this. She said, you promised, so get up quickly and come with me later to help me buy a dress. I've had my eye on it for a long time, but it is a bit expensive. Hurry up, I'm going to change too. Zhang Yulan finished speaking and left in a hurry. I've been eyeing that dress for a long time, but I never dared to buy it before. Zhang Yulan's adoptive mother gave him so much money, and Zhang Yulan hasn't forgotten his promise. Zhang Feiyuan stretched, rubbed his still sore eyes, and then got up to get dressed. Zhang Yulan changed quickly, wearing a short-sleeved shirt with faded jeans, but it didn't affect her temperament at all. Zhang Feiyuan casually wore a pair of shorts and big pants. The two set off together. They soon arrived at the location Zhang Yulan had mentioned. A Chanel clothing store, in the most prosperous area of the city, Zhang Yulan had passed by with her colleagues before. The clothes here are very expensive. She could only look before. After arriving here, Zhang Yulan let out a cheer and dragged Zhang Feiyuan inside. After entering, they came to a long skirt. The workmanship was extremely exquisite and it was indeed very beautiful. However, the price tag was not low. More than 20,000. Zhang Yulan's annual salary was only a little more than this. However, because she had to help her Aunt Zhang Hui take care of so many children, she rarely had any savings left. Zhang Yulan had saved and scrimped in her previous life, and Zhang Feiyuan naturally knew that. Even if Zhang Yulan didn't say anything, he planned to help the family buy more clothes whenever he could. Big sister, is that all you want? I was wondering what it was. You can pick a few more things, your brother has money now. Zhang Feiyuan waved his hand, not caring at all. Put. Stop bragging. These clothes are expensive, don't get them dirty. A young woman with a mocking expression, holding a white pet cat, looked disgusting. Seeing that the two were dressed plainly, Zhang Yulan's hand stroked the clothes again, and she mocked. What the hell do you care if they get dirty? What's it got to do with you? Zhang Yulan was gentle-natured, and Zhang Feiyuan retorted directly. This instantly made the young woman angry, and she couldn't help but squeeze the pet cat in her hand. At that moment, a waitress came running over in a hurry. Miss Fong, when did you arrive? She looked a little nervous. The waitress knew that the woman in front of her was difficult to deal with. Relying on her husband being the store manager, she often scolded the waitresses here. They were also afraid to speak out. Moreover, she often scolded some guests who didn't have money, as if she could find a sense of superiority in it. She can be extremely annoying. But there's nothing they can do, no one dares to offend this woman. Tell him, who am I? Does it matter to me? Fong said with a smug expression. The waiter had no choice but to explain to Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Yulan, ladies and gentlemen, this is our store manager's wife, Miss Fong. The clothes here are indeed very expensive, and I'm afraid you will have to pay for the price if you stain them. Why don't you two just go first? The waiter didn't mean to look down on the two of them. She was just reminding Zhang Feiyuan that this Miss Fong was quite a difficult person. If they really did stain anything, she was afraid that this woman would never let them off the hook. She hoped that the two would leave quickly. After the waitress had finished speaking, Miss Fong became even more smug. Did you hear that? As the wife of the store manager, I need to keep an eye on things in the store for my husband. People like you, who are so poor, don't even deserve to be here. Do you have any money? Do you have any money? With over 100 million in the bank, she asked if they had any money. Zhang Feiyuan really wanted to fart in this woman's face. He directly took out the black card and said, you can see for yourself if you have money. Miss Fong didn't even know this black card. She just came over to show off, but she still wouldn't let it go at this moment, saying, what's so great about having a card? And why should I see it for myself? What's with the act? Miss Fong, this. Don't interrupt me. Do you want to quit? The waiter was shocked. She recognized this black card and knew how powerful the person who held this card was. She couldn't help but want to remind her, but she was interrupted again. Chapter 17. Just work hard and waste money. She couldn't help but curse this woman a fool in her heart. She didn't understand anything at all, and she was still giving orders here. And she was still talking. Get out. Get out of here right now. Don't wave a stupid card in front of me, where's the security? Miss Fong kept shouting, like a shrew. Looking around, Zhang Feiyuan sighed, it's really unlucky to run into someone like this. Pop. A red palm print was directly imprinted on Miss Fong's face, leaving her frozen in place. The bald bodyguard had moved. The 4 bodyguards who followed Zhang Feiyuan always remembered Morong Narain's instructions. In particular, the bald bodyguard, who was the most skilled fighter, always kept a distance of about 10 meters around Zhang Feiyuan to protect his safety. At this moment, he came up and slapped Miss Fong. Everyone in the store was stunned. Afterwards, the bald bodyguard didn't even look at Miss Fong, and bowed to Zhang Feiyuan, young master, just leave this to me. After saying that, the bald bodyguard made a phone call. He muttered something in a foreign language and then hung up. Zhang Feiyuan was surprised. He didn't expect that this bodyguard was still all around, but he had never been good at studying, so he couldn't understand at all. However, Miss Fong next to him understood. The bodyguard had just called Chanel headquarters and wanted to fire her husband. She felt a little bit like it was a fairy tale. She still felt a little dazed at this moment. But she also reacted, as if she had offended someone she shouldn't have. Sure enough. Just a moment later, her husband rushed to her and slapped her hard, cursing with obscenities she had never heard before. Stupid bitch. You're always causing trouble. I was just having breakfast when you screwed up my work. Just wait until I divorce you. I'll divorce you as soon as I get back. The man was going crazy. He had been too lenient with this woman in the past. Just a moment ago, he was having breakfast when he suddenly received a phone call. He was fired from his job at the head office, and it left him dumbfounded. After learning the reason, he regretted it. He regretted marrying this stupid woman. He was sitting in the breakfast restaurant when the pot fell from the sky. Who did he offend? At this moment, he also knew that the person he offended was Zhang Feiyuan, and immediately knelt in front of Zhang Feiyuan and begged, young master, forgive me. My fault. I will definitely divorce this bitch. Zhang Feiyuan was also stunned at this moment. He never expected that such a big brand as Chanel was also related to his own biological mother. Just as the man was about to jump over and hug Zhang Feiyuan's thighs, he was stopped directly by the bald bodyguard, and then he was directly thrown out with one hand. Miss Fong even fell to the ground with a thud. She knew she was finished. And she also knew that no one would pity her. In the end, she was helped out by several waiters, much to everyone's relief. The waiters in the store even looked at Zhang Feiyuan with gratitude, while also giving him countless flirtatious looks. Young master. Although they didn't know the weight of this title, they were sure it was more than they could imagine. Maybe something would happen with Zhang Feiyuan, and they would become phoenixes in the future. Opportunities are always reserved for those who are prepared. The waitress who had kindly reminded Zhang Feiyuan before immediately came up and said, you two are here to buy clothes, right? This piece of clothing has very good craftsmanship and is very comfortable to wear. I can see that this young lady has a beautiful figure and is so pretty, so why don't you try it on first? The saleswoman could tell the relationship between Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Yulan. At this moment, she unstintingly praised, which made Zhang Yulan blush. At the same time, she was surprised in her heart. What kind of adoptive mother did her younger brother recognize? Even the manager of this store can be dismissed at will with one phone call. It's almost like it's run by her family. Not to mention Zhang Yulan, Zhang Feiyuan himself was puzzled. But after all, he had come to buy clothes, so Zhang Feiyuan smiled and looked at Zhang Yulan, big sister, why don't you try it on? You're welcome. You like it anyway, so just try it on and if you're satisfied, we'll take it with us. Okay then. Zhang Yulan grabbed the dress of her dreams, feeling extremely nervous and also a little excited. Even so, she followed the waitress to the fitting room with the dress in hand. Taking this opportunity, Zhang Feiyuan also came to the bald bodyguard and asked, tell me, what's going on? Is my real mother related to Chanel? The bald bodyguard nodded, of course. The big boss has a lot of shares in Chanel. The young master can take whatever he wants from Chanel in the future without paying. The waiters around heard this and almost fainted. What kind of young master is this? The big boss of Chanel? He couldn't wait to take off his pants and go up there to discuss things with Zhang Feiyuan. Zhang Feiyuan was also speechless. He had discovered that as long as he went to a place, as long as it wasn't a food stall, it seemed to be related to his biological mother in some way. This business has gone to the heavens, right? What else could he say? Just do your best to squander your money, as your biological mother said. Why think so much? It's exhausting. As long as you don't work hard, you can do whatever you want. Feeling the hungry eyes of the waitresses around him, he waited in silence for a short while. His sister Zhang Yulan came out after changing her clothes. Wearing a long dress, her temperament had undoubtedly increased by a large margin. She looked like a princess who had come out of a fairy tale. Even with her myopic glasses on, her beauty was still hard to resist. Zhang Yulan was slightly nervous and was also amazed by herself. She had already looked in the mirror before, and there was no difference between how she imagined herself looking in this dress and how she actually looked. Do I look good? Zhang Yulan asked Zhang Feiyuan, looking a little embarrassed. Zhang Feiyuan, already a little dazed, nodded woodenly, well, it's quite nice. Zhang Yulan burst out laughing, also delighted at being praised. Zhang Feiyuan looked directly at the waitress who was accompanying Zhang Yulan and said, then I'll take this one, please help wrap it up later. Okay, sir, don't worry. The waitress smiled, also happy in her heart. As long as these two are satisfied. Afterwards, Zhang Feiyuan was also very polite, and he took Zhang Yulan to pick out many more items. At the same time, he also asked Zhang Yulan to help his aunt Zhang Hui and other people pick out a lot of clothes. The bags and packages were piled high and full. Since it was his own family, Zhang Feiyuan was not polite. By the way, since the store manager is gone, do you need a new one? I think this young lady is very good. Since it was his own family, Zhang Feiyuan felt that he should have the right. Sure enough, the bald bodyguard patted his chest upon hearing this and said, young master, don't worry, it's a matter of one phone call. Then he looked at the waitress and said, could you please tell me your name? The waitress froze, knowing that she had done the right thing and that it was fortunate that she had reacted quickly and been proactive. Otherwise, how could such a good thing have been hers? My name is Lishui. Chapter 18 The Old Beggar. The bald bodyguard silently wrote down the name. Then a phone call was made, after which he looked at Lishui and forced a smile that was not very pleasing to the eye. Miss Lishui, from now on, you will be the manager of this store. His young master had said it himself, so naturally he was extremely polite. Although he had always been a serious and unemotional person, even a little cold-blooded. It was obvious that Zhang Feiyuan had a good impression of the waitress in front of him, and he naturally could feel it. Lishui was overjoyed and also very flattered. For her, today was undoubtedly a good day. Her status would be elevated, and her salary would increase substantially. In the future, she would be able to envy many of her former colleagues, and she would be able to feel proud at reunions with her classmates. Looking at Zhang Feiyuan with gratitude and excitement, she didn't say much. She just quietly slipped Zhang Feiyuan a note. 38, Happiness Street, Guangming Community, Building 3, Unit 503. The address and house number of Lu Zhuya's home were clearly written, and Lu Zhuya had just written them down. This was an opportunity for her, so she wanted to seize it. The woman's handwriting was very beautiful, at least that's how Zhang Feiyuan felt. He silently accepted it, glanced at Lu Zhuya, gave a slight smile, and then put it in his pocket. At this time, Zhang Yulan had also picked out another piece of clothing and came over, her face flushed with excitement. This was the first time she had enjoyed shopping so much. After all, he is her younger brother, and she gradually got used to it from the initial embarrassment and had a great time picking out clothes. Okay, Yuan, I picked out what I like, is that enough? Zhang Yulan looked at the piles of clothes and flushed slightly. She was so happy just now that she hadn't noticed all this. Now that she looked at it, she had picked out so many clothes. There are already so many, if you pick any more, I don't think there will be enough room at home. There are so many people living in the house, and there is not much space left. It is estimated that Auntie Jiang Hui will have a headache if these clothes are kept at home. Zhang Feiyuan glanced at it and nodded silently. He was also a bit worried. With so many clothes, he and the 4 bodyguards might not be able to finish carrying them all. Seeing this, the bald bodyguard immediately said, young master, don't worry, leave this to me. After saying this, the bald bodyguard made another phone call. Soon, several black Mercedes-Benz cars were parked in front of the Chanel store. 10 people got out of them and came to Zhang Feiyuan. The first thing they did was stand in a row and shout, "Hello, young master." This scene once again shocked the shop assistants. This kind of ostentation is really something to aspire to. Many people looked at Lishui with envy, while secretly cursing themselves for previously being so awestruck that they had not seized the opportunity to get close to the man. The bald bodyguard commanded, "You guys carry all these clothes to the car." Yes. 10 people immediately got to work, loading all the clothes that Zhang Yulan had previously selected into the car and taking them away directly. The bald bodyguard looked at Zhang Feiyuan and explained, "Young master, don't worry, these things will be delivered to your home first. You and your sister can continue shopping, just give the things you buy to your subordinates." Zhang Feiyuan didn't know what to say. Finally, he understood why these people had been able to be his biological mother's bodyguards before. They were all capable individuals on their own. They handled things without any fuss, and Zhang Feiyuan didn't need to use any extra brainpower at all. The main thing was an attentive service. It so happened that Zhang Feiyuan didn't plan to leave so early, and when he looked at Zhang Yulan, he noticed that she was in a daze at the moment. She couldn't help but be in a daze. Where had she seen this before? Even the boss of her company was a far cry from Zhang Feiyuan's appearance. "Big sister, do you want to keep shopping? If you continue, we'll leave." After saying this, Zhang Feiyuan's gaze rested on Zhang Yulan's eyes. Zhang Yulan had a good figure, and at the moment she was still wearing the dress that he had been thinking about, and obviously had no intention of taking it off. If there was to be a single flaw, it was that wearing glasses with short-sightedness somewhat affected the appearance. After Zhang Feiyuan finished speaking, he took the still in a daze Zhang Yulan and walked out of the clothing store. It was in the city center itself, and he remembered that there was an optician's nearby. He wanted to get Zhang Yulan a pair of contact lenses so that she would not look unsightly when wearing beautiful clothes in the future. When they entered the optician's, Zhang Yulan also reacted. She did not stop Zhang Feiyuan from leading her to get a pair of contact lenses. This time, Zhang Feiyuan paid for them himself, which only cost a few hundred. When the optician's assistant and the owner saw Zhang Yulan take off her glasses and replace them with contact lenses, they were also taken aback. Together with the luxurious Chanel on her, she looked outstanding. It was hard for people not to keep their eyes on her. Zhang Feiyuan had known it would be like this for a long time, and after seeing it so many times, he was not surprised. Afterwards, they went out and took Zhang Yulan for a nice stroll through the streets. They bought her a whole bunch of all kinds of things that she had never dared to buy or could not afford to buy before, and she could not stop smiling. They walked to the edge of the street when suddenly there was a commotion. "You stinking beggar, get the hell out of here. Who told you to beg here?" A bespectacled man in a suit and glasses, accompanied by a few men in security uniforms, was constantly trying to shake off an old beggar who was clinging to him. The old beggar had unkempt hair, a dirty face and worn-out clothes. This old beggar often begged for food here, and every time he was chased away, he would come back, which infuriated the bespectacled man. This time, he must get rid of the beggar. However, the old beggar was hugging him too tightly, and the several security guards on the side could not break it apart. Zhang Feiyuan didn't care at first, but when he looked at the old beggar's face again, he couldn't help but be shocked. Thinking back to his memories from the last life, he met a very interesting client. That client was a big boss who had groups of villas and piles of lovers during the week. But this was such a big client and rich man. One day when Zhang Feiyuan followed up, he discovered an interesting problem. He treated an old beggar with special respect, treating him like a real father. The respect was so strong that it even seemed a little strange. In his previous life, although he was puzzled, he didn't care, and he couldn't get in touch with the old beggar. But then when he saw the rich man again, he was getting younger and younger. His body was also more robust than before. This strange scene, if he said it had nothing to do with the old beggar, he would never believe it. He remembered the appearance of the old beggar, and it was the old beggar in front of him. He knew that the identity of the old beggar in front of him was not simple, and he was definitely of a high level. He might have some methods that could help people extend their lives or even cure their illnesses. Thinking about Zhang Liang's sister, as well as his own gradually aging biological mother and Aunt Zhang Hui, Zhang Feiyuan needed to get rid of this old beggar and find out his secret. Chapter 19, Helping his sister cure her eyes. Although he didn't know why he was so disheveled and liked to beg, it didn't stop Zhang Feiyuan, who had known him in his previous life. He could still pretend in front of others, but it wouldn't work with Zhang Feiyuan. Seeing that it was difficult to command the security guards with his eyes, he was about to take action against the old beggar when Zhang Feiyuan stepped forward and shouted, "Stop! An old man is begging for food here, what's wrong with that?" Why are you being so aggressive? Zhang Feiyuan got goosebumps after saying this. But he couldn't just go up and reveal his rebirth. These people didn't know anyway, and he needed a reason. The bespectacled man and the security guards stopped, and the old beggar's gaze also fell on him, his eyes flashing with an unnoticeable gleam. The bespectacled man stared at Zhang Feiyuan for a moment, then waved his hand nonchalantly. Who the hell are you? Why are you butting in? Get lost, or I'll beat you up too. Pa! Be polite when you speak to the young master. The bald bodyguard went up and slapped the bespectacled man, his eyes glaring, instantly scaring the bespectacled man, who was about to curse, into swallowing his words. The bespectacled man immediately looked at the several security guards beside him and found that they were also shocked by the bald bodyguard's aura. The bald bodyguard had been following Zhang Feiyuan, allowing him to get a little closer to him, and he came out at the first opportunity. With his tall build and commanding presence, he was someone the security guards would not dare mess with. Immediately, one of the security guards whispered in the bespectacled man's ear, "Maybe we should retreat first." This bodyguard called that person young master, so he must be someone not to be messed with. If we mess with the wrong person and get into trouble, we might not be able to handle it. The people who can come to this street to shop are not lacking in wealthy second-generation rich people. These security guards are responsible for maintaining the peace here on weekdays, and they have long since become experts at knowing who to mess with and who not to mess with. The bespectacled man who had been slapped was very unwilling, but he understood this. He could only swallow his grievances. He cursed himself for being such a bitch just now, which had caused him to be so humiliated now. The bespectacled man nodded slightly, and then made a decision to leave with a few security guards. The bespectacled man did not know that fortunately, he did not act impulsively, otherwise he would lose his job and be beaten up again. After the bespectacled man left, the people around the crowd saw that there was no more excitement to watch and they also left. Ah! Why did you stab me? Zhang Yulan exclaimed, and the old beggar had several needles in his hand at an unknown time, and he actually stabbed her. Zhang Feiyuan helped him, and the old beggar not only didn't know how to be grateful, but also stabbed her. Zhang Yulan rubbed her neck. The old beggar's movements were fast, and Zhang Feiyuan saw it. He quickly stabbed a few needles in Zhang Yulan's neck and then withdrew them. Zhang Feiyuan was not in a hurry to get angry. He knew that the old beggar would not do this for no reason. The old beggar smiled slightly. Hey, I have always been grateful. You helped me, and I will help you too. Zhang Yulan was puzzled and a little angry, but suddenly she felt a blur in her eyes, so she immediately took off her contact lenses. Instantly, she felt a burst of clarity. My eyes are better? Zhang Yulan finally realized, looking at the old beggar in disbelief. This unpresentable, unkempt old beggar seemed to be a little different. Zhang Yulan herself didn't believe that it had nothing to do with him. Zhang Yulan said that she was just wondering a moment ago. Knowing Zhang Feiyuan very well, she knew that he had never been a good boy since he was young. When he met beggars on the street, he would definitely say that they should just go beg if they had hands and feet, and it would be good if they didn't go up and kick them a few times. Just now, he even said something like that, acting like a model of morality. Now she suddenly realized that Zhang Feiyuan seemed to have seen that this old beggar was extraordinary. Her anger subsided, and she felt a little embarrassed and smiled at the old beggar. Zhang Feiyuan was also happy at this time. I never thought that this old beggar really had real skills and could cure my myopia? Could it be that he is a miracle healer? I also understand now why that rich man in my previous life treated this old beggar so badly. Zhang Feiyuan immediately went up and put his arm around the old beggar's shoulders. Old man, thank you very much. I never thought that you were still a hidden master. Was that medical skill you just used? I'm hungry. The old beggar did not answer Zhang Feiyuan's words, but just spoke in this way, and his stomach cooperated by growling twice. Zhang Feiyuan knew exactly what the old beggar meant. Thinking about Zhang Liang's sister, and to spare Zhang Liang from having to hug him and cry in the future, Zhang Feiyuan didn't hesitate for a second and simply waved his hand. Just tell me what you want to eat, old man, it's on me. You said it, then I won't be polite. I want to go to Lishui Hotel and have a good meal, should that be okay? The old beggar was also very unceremonious, and the first thing he said was that he wanted to go to Lishui Hotel. But for Zhang Feiyuan, who already knew that this hotel was his family's property, there was naturally no problem. He nodded in agreement. Of course you can, but let's agree first that after you've finished eating, you'll help me save someone. The old beggar smiled as he heard this, holding onto his beard. That's easy to say, as long as you've eaten, everything can be discussed. Zhang Feiyuan was also pleased when he saw that the old beggar agreed. In that case, maybe there would be a cure for Zhang Suya's illness, and a dead horse would be treated as a live one. The old beggar in front of him is obviously different. If he is cured, it means that the old beggar is simply a god, and he must stay by his side in the future to make a fortune. Lishui Hotel. When Zhang Feiyuan brought the old beggar and Zhang Yulan here again, the hotel manager greeted them at the first opportunity. Zhang Yulan had also heard of Lishui Hotel and naturally had some yearning for it. She often heard her colleagues talk about how attentive the service at Lishui Hotel was and how expensive a single visit could be. Some colleagues even bragged about it for a week after just one visit. It was as if they had become rich just by visiting. But Zhang Yulan never imagined that this Lishui Hotel was the family business of Zhang Feiyuan. It wasn't until she saw the hotel manager address Zhang Feiyuan as young master with such a humble attitude that she suddenly understood. The hotel manager was not surprised to see Zhang Feiyuan and Zhang Yulan together. After all, they were both dressed normally. But seeing the old beggar's ragged appearance, he was very surprised and puzzled. If he wasn't following Zhang Feiyuan, he would have had someone throw him out long ago. The old beggar was also extremely surprised at this moment. He had been looking for a rich man who could help support him in his old age. He squatted there on the street begging for food, knowing that there were usually more wealthy people passing by there. To be honest, he was just trying to see how wealthy Zhang Feiyuan was. He never imagined that it would seem like he owned the place himself. Haha, this young master is quite something. Chapter 20: The Identity of the Old Beggar. The two men had different thoughts in their hearts. But coincidentally, they bumped into each other. The old beggar's original name was Li Feng. As a child, he was taken to the mountains by his master, and he had just recently come down from the mountains. He discovered that the times had drastically changed, and it was nothing like what he knew, which made him feel out of place. He could only barely survive by begging, but at the same time, he knew one thing: in this world, as long as you have money, you can do many things. He is proficient in medical techniques and health preservation, and is capable. Occasionally, he meets a few people who appreciate his skills, but they are not wealthy and can only give him a small amount of compensation. He needs a place where he can shine. Zhang Feiyuan may look younger, but he obviously comes from a wealthy family. If he can follow him in the future, he should have a good life. Soon, the hotel manager led a few people to the room where they would be specially treated. Zhang Yulan was shocked along the way. Gradually, she became numb. She was also very curious about the old beggar who had cured her eyes. When the various rare dishes were served, the old beggar rubbed his dirty hands together, his face covered in drool and full of excitement, and he couldn't wait to start tucking in. He didn't care about his appearance. Zhang Yulan had wanted to try the taste, but she also lost her appetite in an instant. Stunned, she watched the old beggar in a daze. Zhang Feiyuan didn't bother her, and with a smile, whispered to Zhang Yulan, "If you want to try the taste, I'll bring you here alone next time." This old beggar is no ordinary person. How did this brat figure it out? Zhang Yulan nodded and pondered in her heart. However, the hotel manager was also there, so she didn't ask any more. At this moment, the hotel manager had already arrived at the room, not daring to make a sound, and he was accompanied by two beautiful women in cheongsams, different from the last time. Zhang Feiyuan could not help but marvel at the many beautiful women in this hotel. The hotel manager whispered, "Young master, do you need it?" "Yes, go." The hotel manager received his order and immediately waved his hand at the two cheapao beauties. The two came up behind the old beggar who was eating and gently massaged his shoulders. The old beggar immediately trembled all over. Although he was proficient in medical techniques and health preservation, he had always been with his immortal master on the mountain, and his master's order was not to go down the mountain. He only dared to come down after boiling his master to death. His master lived to be 136 years old. What a life! Li Feng is already in his 80s himself. Because he is proficient in health preservation medicine, he looks like he is in his 60s. Not to mention such a beautiful woman, it is difficult to get in touch with even a female animal. He turned his head and looked at the two beautiful women like flowers in jade. He gently put down the half-eaten Australian lobster in his hand and couldn't help but stare intently. Wiping his mouth, he held the hands of the two beautiful women in cheongsams and couldn't help but tear up. The scene was extremely strange, an old man who was about to enter the coffin holding the hands of two beautiful women. This might be the power of money, which he deeply understood at his age. When he looked at Zhang Feiyuan again, his gaze carried gratitude for his benefactor. I wonder what this young master is called? The old beggar asked as he watched Zhang Feiyuan regain some composure. My surname is Jiang, Zhang Feiyuan replied. Then, Master Jiang, would you mind if we had a word alone? Li Feng looked forward to it. Of course. The hotel manager was also a person of experience, and immediately waved his hand, leading the two beautiful women in Cheongsam's away. Zhang Yulan also stood up and walked out gently. The hotel manager immediately said, Miss, please follow me to the lounge, where the environment is better. After they had left, the old beggar grabbed Zhang Feiming's arm and said excitedly, Young Master Jiang, I can tell you are a discerning person. To be honest, old man, I have just recently come down from the mountains and am not familiar with the world, but I long for life here. I am proficient in medical techniques and health preservation. If young Master Jiang does not mind, old man is willing to follow you around in the future. My lineage has a qi nourishing technique. Long-term practice can lead to a long life. If Master Jiang doesn't mind, I'm willing to give it to you. The master had repeatedly warned Li Feng not to pass on this qi nourishing technique, and that he could only do so if he met someone with excellent bone structure. But with the problem of being able to eat, he couldn't care about so much. For his own future happy life, his master is already dead anyway, so he doesn't care about this. Zhang Feiyuan also didn't expect the old beggar to be so direct. Finally, he understood why the boss he met in his previous life was so young. It was probably related to the qi cultivating technique that the old beggar had mentioned. This was about finding a patron. At such an old age, he was still so flamboyant, but he was indeed a person with real abilities, as Zhang Feiyuan had already determined before. If it were in the past, Zhang Feiyuan really couldn't afford to support such a capable person, but now it was different. This person would be very useful to keep around. It is practically a life-saving elixir. If I can learn all his skills, I will be unstoppable in the future. Zhang Feiyuan accepted the tattered book handed over by the old beggar without any hesitation. After taking a quick look, he noticed that the book was not thick, but contained a lot of words, all of which Zhang Feiyuan did not understand. He placed the book on the table for the time being, then helped the old beggar up and said, You're welcome, old man. You can follow me from now on. This person is just trying to support his old age, and it doesn't look like he'll live long. Just support him in the future. Li Feng was surprised and felt that he had finally found a way to get close to Zhang Feiyuan. He was immediately full of enthusiasm and asked Zhang Feiyuan, I wonder if young master would let me feel your bones? Li Feng suddenly remembered what his master had said, there are some physical constitutions that are not suitable for cultivating the art of nurturing qi. If you force yourself to cultivate, you may suffer instead. Zhang Feiyuan is his future patron, and he doesn't want anything to happen to Zhang Feiyuan. Zhang Feiyuan was suspicious, but seeing the old beggar's cautious appearance, he nodded. Then you can come. After that, the old beggar's hand felt around Zhang Feiyuan's back for a while, and soon, Zhang Feiyuan felt a tremor in the old beggar's body. He turned around and saw that the old beggar's eyes were filled with incomparable surprise, and his fingers were trembling as he pointed at Zhang Feiyuan. His tone trembled with a hint of stammering, Oh my, the destined one. Such a rare talent, the old man is just too lucky. Zhang Feiyuan was not only not the type of physique that could not practice this qi nourishing technique, but it was also very suitable. He was the destined one that his master had once spoken of. This qi nourishing technique was completely tailor-made. Even he and his master were far inferior. In the records of the martial arts school, such a person would be hard to come by in 1,000 years. Originally, he just wanted to find a patron and slowly look for someone who was really suitable to inherit the legacy, but now it seems that there is no need. In the future, he can impart all that he has learned. Thinking about this, the old beggar's face changed, his expression became serious, and he said, Young master, my sect is called the Eternal Life Sect, and we are proficient in medicine and divination. I am already the 128th generation leader of the sect. I wonder if you would like to become the 129th generation leader of my Eternal Life Sect?